Welcome to the Estate Professional Lifestyle and Career Design course. I want to talk to you for just a second about why this course exists as the kind of the entry point into the community, and why I designed it in the way I did. So I started in probate in 2012 was kind of my first entry into it as, hi, I'm Chad, I'm the investor. And then I was like, oh, I'm not going to get this one as an investor. Hi, Chad, I'm the realtor. And trying to switch those hats, trying to figure out which one I would wear when I went on an appointment until one day. And if you've taken our probate mastery course, you've heard the story about Pam and what happened that day in that house. And what I ultimately learned, I'll spare you that because chances are you've taken that course already and heard the story. But what I learned from that was if I just be Chad, if I just focus on the consumer's needs, that was my career in probate real estate, was being a vertically integrated solutions provider. And we'll talk more about that later. What ultimately led me out of production into starting a probate lead company, into starting a probate education company, and now into building a community to help the people who've trusted me along the way. That was a progression for me. So it was a combination, the way I made decisions, the way I set goals, the way I measured myself against my prior self or the expected future self. All of that stuff came from hundreds of books and seminars, walking on fire with Tony Robbins. I mean, you name it. But what it ultimately, where I think I've shown myself to have the most value is in one-on-one coaching. I can create profound differences just by working directly with someone. Obviously, that doesn't scale because of my lifestyle goals. I prefer to work less, earn more, and do good. But I can't be available to thousands and thousands of people every day, not in one-on-one or in person. So one of the things I've challenged myself with is meeting the needs of the students that I've seen that they got leads, they failed. They got education, they froze. And what they say they think they need is a checklist. Give me this step-by-step entry into this career as an estate professional. And I disagree with that, because what I've learned in personal coaching and one-on-one coaching, spending an hour every other week with people throughout the whole entry point of this into 6 and 7 figures, what I've learned is no checklist is ever the same. So I challenged myself to build personas. Like, let's say this is persona A, B, C, and D. And if you want to take this path, here's your checklist. If you want to take this path, here's your checklist. Then I had to go all the way back to how I built myself and how I used to do goal setting and how I measured myself against that past self and that future self. And I'm like, wait a minute, you always lead with lifestyle. So this course might be a little unexpected. The community is more about the specifics of how to build a business and as an estate professional. But this entry point is unique because we're going to look at your lifestyle first. And if you've heard me on other people's podcasts, oftentimes I'm on entrepreneurial podcasts talking about golden cages. And for me, I built myself a golden cage more than once in my career. I was making great money. I was having a good time. But as I've progressed and come to appreciate time more than money and experiences more than money, it's, building a big, ginormous business that you have to be present in every day. Otherwise, it harms you or those around you that help you in the business or your customers. It's not something that appeals to me. So I look for high impact ways to reach people at scale. And that didn't just happen from the very beginning. I didn't envision that. It took like mistakes and falling on my face and learning. And I've watched some of the leaders in this community go through the same things. Like, they've gotten themselves into a point where they're working 7 days a week, 15 hours a day, and just get frustrated. So my point there is, this is not like a linear trajectory that goes, up and to the right. You've probably seen that meme of what people think entrepreneurs do, what entrepreneurs actually do. It's all over the place. So I'm going to do my best to wrap all of that into a linear course that will hopefully help you reduce the mistakes made and the wrong turns taken that I've taken. So This is going to be a little different than what you've seen from us in the past, because this is normally how I coach one-on-one. This is how I spend my time in masterminds when I'm working with high-level mastermind peers that are running, 8 figure businesses. Usually their biggest problem is they built a golden cage. They're not enjoying time with their families. They're not taking time off. They're spending too much time with the wrong people. They're addicted, but it's to their business. They created a machine that they can put ideas into and take cash out of. And that's a huge dopamine hit, right? So a lot of times those people don't need advice on money. They don't need advice on tactics. What they need to do is step back and look at who they've become and who they want to be, and do that gap analysis, and then say, how do I get there? What habits do I need to establish? What habits do I need to abolish? And what will get me to be the man that I want to be in 5 years? So that's what this course is about. I ask that you proceed with an open mind, stick with it, and remember, as we've talked about in Probate Mastery, mastery is a journey, not a destination. So I want you to come through this, set your vision. When something changes in 6 months, please come back here first. If you feel lost, if you feel stuck, if you find yourself procrastinating, it's usually out of fear. Without being there in person with you, I can't usually highlight exactly what that is, but this course is designed in such a way that it gives you a self-analysis as a person and as an entrepreneur. And it hopefully will be the tool that you can use to break through those moments. So what I want you to do from here, lock your office door or wherever you are. Hopefully you're in a private, quiet space. Turn off your phone. Take 3 deep breaths, and let's jump into this, guys. Let's create life and career deliberately so you can live your best life ever and be the most valuable member of this community possible. Before we jump into planning, I want to take a minute to make sure that you understand the full spectrum of opportunity as a real estate professional in the estate profession. If you haven't been through Probate Mastery, I want to at least give you a basic overview of what's possible, because in that course in session 2, we show you the full spectrum, everything that can be done from basic wholesaling to as is, where is, brokerage listings, all the way to novations, joint ventures with the estate, where you actually, they provide the house, you provide the capital and the construction, and then you split the net profits. So we look at all of the basic to advanced tactics, and whether that's on license or off license, brokerage or investment. If you haven't taken that course, we'll spend a few minutes here to kind of run through that. Also in session 3 of Probate Mastery, I show you how to not title yourself in the beginning of the relationship. The first time you actually present, a title or a proposed service to the family is when you bring the face-to-face appointment after you've toured the home. You bring that to a close. And that's where what we'll talk about later as a vertically integrated solutions provider, I have to put a label to it. For me, it was just being Chad. And you probably have heard me tell the story of my first deal where that epiphany happened to me. I used to be Chad the investor, then I used to be Chad the broker, and I tried to go in and change hats if they weren't responding to the thing that I came to offer. Then what I realized is quit thinking about your damn self, focus on their needs, and just be Chad. Chad can do anything. He can help with any problem they have. You have a solution, you have a skill set, and you have the vendor team to back you up. Just be Chad. But I have to put a title to that. So what I teach, I'll simplify that and say CPEs, because they have been through the course and seen me teach everything that can be done and the way I presented those options to the seller. So it was always a choice. I wasn't forcing my desired outcome or, a certain idea on the seller. I just knew I could help them, and I knew I could get paid multiple different ways. That's ideally where I would like to see all of you guys end up. I'd like to see you set a goal to be that vertically integrated solutions provider that says, "Oh yeah, there's a raccoon in the shed you need to get out so you can get to your dad's antique car. Got it. I'll have a guy over there in 10 minutes." Just the most outlandish things you wouldn't expect to have in a real estate business. Just be that person. And that's when you can appeal to everyone. So no matter how you speak to them, whether it's on the phone, or they message you on social media, or you meet them at the courthouse, or walking down the street, or a neighbor refers them to you, you know without preparing that you can solve their problem and you can get paid for that. That's my goal for you. It's the rest of this course is to help you make a choice on based on what you think you're capable of, both from a skill set standpoint, but also a lifestyle standpoint. If you say I'm gonna be like that, I want to make $1 million a year as a solutions provider, I'm gonna work 4 counties. Well, guess what? You better not want to go on vacation very much, because you're gonna be busting your ass. So in the courses, we show you the spectrum of what can be done, and then how we present that to the seller in session 3. In this community, weekly calls, workshops, we talk about the same stuff all the time. So if you haven't taken the course, that's fine. I do want to run through it here. So the most common way that people find this community is they're in real estate brokerage. Oftentimes they're buyer's agents or listing agents in their mind, like they've got a specialty. But they know they need more listings, because listings have leverage. Every broker's that they've ever had told them that, right? So the 3 most common functions within a brokerage professional would be listing agent, buyer's agent, or property management. Now, most people come here to find out how to get more listings, because there's leverage with listings. And that's where most people will probably be interested in using their licenses. How do I get the listings? And we talk all about that in Probate Mastery and in Earn. We'll talk about it throughout this community. So you can list these homes with limited service brokerage, where you just help walk them through something, like you do a small piece that's clearly defined and disclosed, what you will and will not do according to your state law. You can do as is, where is, just simply go take some pictures and put it out and let the investor frenzy begin. You can do, conventional listings, where you put the responsibility on them to get the house empty and get everything taken care of. Then you come back for photography or schedule your photographer. Or you can get to even into a much higher level of service just as a listing agent. But you can help, you can coordinate, you can become that vertically integrated solutions provider and just get paid for one spoke in that kind of hub and spoke concept. Just for the listing agent spoke, you get paid. You refer them to your clean out crew, to your contractor to change the locks, to a senior moving company to move the valuables into the self-storage facility that you introduced them to. And you bring all of these people together to help you achieve what you want, which is just listing this house and taking a commission and going home. Because I don't want to have to learn all these creative skills and things. I just want to be a listing agent. That's fine. You're going to choose how much opportunity you want to take advantage of, and how much you want to grow in your business versus how much time you want to spend on your lifestyle. That's okay. So the spectrum there is limited service all the way to full service. Let me do everything. You just sit back and watch me provide the highest level of service you've never seen from a real estate professional. That's all. Your choice lies within that. We'll figure that out later. As a buyer's agent, I wouldn't say that coming into the probate space, if you really want to grow as a buyer's agent and have that be the predominant part of your business, probably not the smartest place. The reason it's here is I try to turn every probate seller into a buyer or a lender. So if we sell a home for a family, well, either we can borrow that money to buy another house, or we can have our investor borrow that money to buy another house. But I usually first start with saying, nearing the end of the transaction. So guys tell me, I work with a lot of families. I see 90% of them, they will, and I'm choosing words carefully here, they will spend 100% of the inheritance within a year. But about 10% of them choose to invest that inheritance and actually grow the family legacy. So help me understand, are you guys spenders or investors? Now, the way I ask that is, aren't they going to feel embarrassed if they're like, oh, well, we're going to buy a camper and a 4-wheeler. We're spenders. It's hard to say, right? So what I want to do is get them into the part of their brains like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't think about spending it would be wasting legacy, but investing it may be extending legacy. What can we invest in, Chad? Well, that's your choice. So tell me about your lifestyle. So we can help move them into a rental portfolio. We could help them get a vacation property, or we could turn them into a private money lender. This is kind of supplementary to being in brokerage as a listing professional. The buyer's agent it's usually just with the sellers we can convert to buyers, except in a dual agency, which I don't participate in, but I will do. Excuse me. I will refer within my brokerage and appoint another agent to represent one of the parties. But the vast majority of my probate listings that I took as the listing agent, the vast majority sold to an investor buyer that I had a relationship with. A lot of times these were priced, 20% under top retail market value. We would list them, call for offers in 7 days, and I could send a text message and sell a house in minutes, usually without sight unseen, because of the trust my buyers had with me. I would either leave them unrepresented and take the full 6% listing commission, or I would refer the seller if it was a new buyer that I needed to show a high level of attention to. I would refer the seller to my broker or another agent within the brokerage as designated agent, and then I would represent the buyer to create a really good lasting first impression on that first deal. From there on, I usually gave them an unrepresented party addendum. They were unrepresented, and as the listing agent, I was only a fiduciary to one person. That's why I don't believe in dual agency. I don't believe you can be a truly objective fiduciary to two people at the same time, especially when shit goes sideways. So I used designated agency, or I used unrepresented buyers. Either way, it wasn't technically buyer's agency in that case, but I was able to collect 6% of the commission and be proud of the way I handled the ethics. I knew that there was not a conflict of interest because I wasn't trying to ride two horses with one ass. I was representing one party. Next is property management. This is one of those things that if you're already good at property management, you have the systems and processes in place, you can clean up because you have something to offer that most people don't. Hi, Mr. Seller. My name's Chad. I have a team of people here in the town that help families going through estate administration. One of the first things families usually struggle with is knowing what to do with the house. We can help you by transitioning it to a family rental. We can, make sure we place the right tenant in there. We can get the home on the market and get top value. We can get the home on the market and get it sold in a week. You have just another quiver in your arrow, another value point to include. Now, guys, if you're not already in property management, but you think you want to be, I would encourage you to find a mentor. Find somebody who's already good at it and go spend a couple of days with them and their team in the office. See what it takes. See the software they use. See the logistics, the variables that they manage on a daily basis. For me, I'm a visionary, and it is not the business for me to be in. It's thin margin, high volume, high stress. It looks like from the outside, it looks like it's an easy business. In order to be really profitable and make a big impact, you have to do it at scale, and you got to be doing hundreds of doors with a very high level of service for both the tenants and the owners. Compared to everything else we've talked about, even just in real estate brokerage, for me, it just didn't fit from a lifestyle standpoint, especially because you're up, you're on call always. But if you have property management in your model already, it can be a really strong offer. Next, let's move to real estate investment. So I started in probate saying, hey, my name's Chad. I'm a real estate investor. I'm looking to buy X number of houses this year. And that was taught to me by mentors. It was what you were supposed to do. Doesn't mean that it was worth a damn or it was very effective. I was pretty good at wholesaling. What I didn't like is the fact that I knew they had other options, and I didn't tell them that on those first couple deals. I had heavily disclosed that I was buying this property with the sole intent to make a profit, and that I was a licensed agent in 4 other states. But I wasn't in this transaction. No agency relationship exists. I was a principal looking to make a profit. I was very transparent in how I did wholesaling, and I was good at it, but I didn't like how it made me feel. And we'll learn more about that later when we get into this course and we start talking about feelings and feeling-based goal setting. Um, I'll call myself out here. The reason it didn't feel good to me is because of how I was doing it. I was following bad advice. What I ultimately learned is there is a way to ethically wholesale. And for me, the most ethical way and the way that feels really good to me is what I teach in Probate Mastery. So we lay out options for them. Once we've visited the home, we've looked at all the options. Option one is usually cash offer, as is, where is, close in 7 days. That's the wholesale price. But then there's option 2 and 3 and 4. Option 2 is usually as is, where is. Option 3 is usually a conventional sale. Option 4 is usually a creative solution, something like a lease with option to purchase, or something like that, a joint venture, something that's really they weren't even considering that could be an option. But for me, when I lay that out and I compare each of the scenarios side by side on a net sheet, I show them how much money I'm going to sell the house for and say, you can get this amount or I can get this amount. Someone has to take a hell of a lot of risk and spend a hell of a lot of time getting this thing into that condition. So do you have the cash and the time and the risk tolerance to get to turn this number into that number, or should I? And then shut up. And a lot of times they'll then realize, oh wait, I didn't think about that. Where are we going to get the $75,000 and have that out for 6 or 8 months? Well, we're just not going to be able to do that. Well, okay, so I guess we can't sell it for that price unless we do all that. So they'll very quickly come to the realization of why they can't get $150,000 for this $70,000 house that you're telling them is now worth $70,000. And that is how I wholesale. So I show them what can be done, and then I show them why it's not feasible for them to be the one that does it, and they make a choice to sell to me at a deeply discounted price. I've done this over and over and over since about my third deal. I had this epiphany, and that's how I've done it ever since. I've bought houses for 12 cents on the dollar. The house I'm standing in right now had a replacement cost of about $175,000 for an acre and a half of land, 36 by 36 home, all the site work, everything done. I paid $25,000 for this house. Now, it's a vacation home for me, so my basis is 10 times that because I went a little overboard. But I bought the house for 15 cents on the dollar by being very open and transparent and showing them what they could do. So that is wholesaling. Next up would be buy and hold. So this is, your typical landlord. So I'm going to buy this house. I'm going to put it in a portfolio, long-term rental. I keep it forever. When I die, my heirs get a step-up basis. All the tax advantages remain with my estate, and my heirs don't get taxed on the wealth that I've created. You guys have probably heard of the BRRRR method by now. My friend Brandon Turner, I think, coined that, him or David. The buy, rent, renovate, refinance, repeat, BRRRR. This is the buy and hold model. So really scaling up a portfolio of usually long-term rentals. There's this new terminology in the marketplace, the midterm rentals. I usually think of that in like Airbnb, VRBO, like sometimes vacation rentals are short term. But then you have travel nursing. Typically those are 3 to 6 month leases. You have residential assisted living, which are usually 6 to 18 month leases with the tenant, the tenant or patient. So there's kind of long-term rental, which would be what's subject to landlord-tenant law, just a standard landlord-tenant lease on an annual basis. Then there's midterm, which would be more like those residential assisted living or executive housing, furnished executive housing. And then there's short-term, which is, not necessarily just vacation rentals. It's just short-term rentals. It's become a whole new economy, especially if you're near a hospital, a convention center, a state park, things like that. So that's the opportunity within buy and hold. Fix and flip. This is obviously what everybody knows about flipping houses. Within this, you can do it where you acquire the asset and you flip it and sell it. You can do it as what I call a slow flip, and this is what I would recommend just from a taxation standpoint. Flipping houses, I did it. Like, it's kind of like wholesaling. I jumped in with both feet. I was damn good at it. I set the high comp in every neighborhood I flipped the house in. But then I come back and I looked at the accounting. I'm like, what the hell? They're like, where'd all the money go? And the margins, I mean, I would tolerate a minimum 18% gross yield. But by the time I figured out, the 18% gross yield was minus taxes, minus business ops expenses. And I'm like, holy shit, why would I even do this? Why take this amount of risk for like such a low EBITDA or net operating income? Once you back the true cost out, it's not that attractive for me. It's a lot of risk. The market can shift. If you're not looking at leading indicators, you can get pinched. There's people going through it right now. You see home builders dumping inventory. So for me, I like long flips. You buy the house, you put a tenant in it at whatever rent you can get, hold it for 9 to 12 months, then flip it. And what's the difference? Now it's a long-term capital gain. So by getting past the 1 year and a day mark, now we just pay 20% taxes on that, where we had to pay otherwise an earned income tax rate. So, and if we're investing in things that help you, with capital gains, then you might not have to pay tax at all. That's for a different conversation. But fix and flip is what you're usually. It's, somebody that lives in town, they buy it with hard money or their own money. Sometimes community bank money. By the way, most people think that's not possible, but it absolutely is. You can hear me talk about that on YouTube lots and lots of times. The more advanced version of this would be when we joint venture with the family. Some people would call that a novation. It's usually for me just a simple joint venture. So they provide the house, you provide the capital, the construction, the expertise. You established a basis value before the asset was rolled into a land trust or an LLC. And then from that basis, you take out the true cost, including your brokerage commission if you're the broker. And then you split the net 50-50. So that's a way to flip houses for free, basically. You lower your risk by getting the inventory for free instead of buying from a wholesaler or on market. Then you do what you do and you split the net profit. So it's a less risky way to do fix and flip. Excuse me. And then the more advanced, highest risk, most advanced form of real estate investing that I've used in probate is private lending. So as a private lender, you can create bridge loans or mezzanine financing for your investors. You can be the hard money loan for your investors. So your LLC can write a hard money loan to your investor who you're representing as his agent, his buyer's agent. And you'll in Probate Mastery, we talk about how to compartmentalize and the functions of your business from a corporate standpoint and a legal standpoint. We won't get into that here. But you can play multiple parties, but you could be in the deal, you could be a buyer's agent. You could also be acting as a commercial lender to an investor through an LLC, and you're not violating any laws, you're not breaking any rules. Your broker should be comfortable with that because you're creating a transaction. And this is like the lifestyle by design piece, guys. Like you don't always have to invest in other people's deals, create your own. So it's more advanced. It'll take some time and experience. You should have a mentor, but there is a lot of opportunity to use private lending in your real estate investment strategy. Now, you can also obviously borrow money from other people, but you can loan to other investors. You can actually do probate advances to the family. You could even, for example, this is usually the opposite. I usually ask contractors to carry invoices. But if you have a contractor who's tight on cash because the market changed, material costs continue to go up, jobs came down, he's like, yeah, man, I'll get in there and do it. But, I don't like to invoice clients beforehand. Can you float me a $10,000 loan to get started so I can pay the guys? If you really trust this person, you could actually make loans from your entity to the contractor's entity. The family doesn't even have to know about it. My point is, becoming the hub of this, like the trusted hub of the team, you'll have lots of opportunities to be a lender. So lastly is the vertically integrated solutions provider. I'll simplify this and say if you're a CPE, if you've been through the Probate Mastery class, if you've done everything that was taught in that class, A CPE would certainly cover this title. This is everything I've talked about, guys. Literally everything I've spoken about in this video rolled into one, plus much, much more. And there's lots of other places in this community where we'll talk about that. Has been pretty comprehensive. This is being able to serve no matter what their problem is. You have a solution, or you find a solution that day. And when you get to that level, this becomes fun and easy. You can delegate 90% of the work and, really work less, earn more, and do good. So if you look below, you'll find a probate ROI calculator, return on investment. This is going to give you an opportunity to actually try this on for size. So you're going to know how many leads you're getting, how much you're paying for that. What I want you to pay attention to, there's an input tab and there's a results tab. On the input tab, use the real median price of a home in your market. As far as conversion rates, like if you're just getting started, just put 1%. Do 1% conversion just to see how much of a difference this could make. So say I'm going to have 100 leads a month. I pay X amount to get those, whether it's from a company or from an assistant that goes to the courthouse. I'm going to send this many letters. This is how much letters cost me. I've got $1.50 in there by default. You can do it for less than that. But then you go to the results tab, and you have to make a choice there. So I'm a broker, I'm an investor, or I'm both. And then your output tab will say, here's what you can do. Based on this number of leads with this conversion rate, this is the amount of money you could expect to spend and make. And what's really interesting, I built this calculator for myself when I was really building my probate business. Mary Lou Tyler approached me because she had heard about how consistent my funnel was in probate. And she's like, could I use you as kind of a case study for a keynote speech? She had just released the book Predictable Revenue. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I got to track more. So I started tracking every single number in the business. That's where this exercise came from. I'm like, what is my actual return? So I built a calculator, and then I learned to use that for students to set expectations, especially if you've never done a probate deal, you're scared to start something new, you've got limited marketing dollars, it's got to work. This is a really great place to start. So I will wrap up here. Jump into that probate ROI calculator. Pick your title. Are you a broker? Are you an investor? Are you a CPE? Are you both? Can you provide a solution to anyone and monetize every real estate conversation? If not, we'll find out later if that is one of your goals as you proceed into the community. I'm not going to lie. From here, it might get a little bit weird. I'm going to ask you to step out of your comfort zone. I'm going to ask you to do some things you probably haven't done before unless you've really been on a growth trajectory and really been in masterminds and invested in yourself at a very high level. You probably haven't done some of these things. All I ask from here forward is that, take my advice and be selfish. Forget about what your parents, your teachers, your clergymen, everyone in your childhood, forget about what they said for a moment, just for a moment. Don't worry about your spouse, your kids, your parents, any of your dependents, whether legal or non-legal dependents, your best friend who has to call and cry every night. Like, this is about you designing something you're proud of that results in you being the best version of yourself so you can be even more for those people, all of those dependents around you. So in a healthy sense, I want you to be selfish today as we progress through this. Think about you and you first, because if your cup is full, everyone around you is going to benefit. There's so much proof of this in my life. It was a damn hard lesson to learn. But it's not acting in a selfish way every day. It's planning in a selfish way and then setting healthy boundaries and helping people understand that they can get what they want if you can create a healthy boundary so you can get what you want and you feel fulfilled. You're going to be more present and more valuable to them. Hard lesson for me to learn, but I ask you today in this session, in setting a vision, be selfish, because you deserve that. You really do. I don't give a damn what anyone else says. Next, be open-minded. Some of the tactics that I've aggregated what I've found to be most effective for myself, but also how I can create lasting change very quickly and students and peers. I have exposure to a lot of high net worth people, and we help each other just like you guys do in this community. And one thing's for sure, we're all human. Like it's when you see a guy making $100 million a year bare his soul, he has the same damn problems you do. So I'm taking what I've learned from some higher level, communities and conversations that I've used in my own life, and I've then learned to use with others. Some of it's a little bit weird. Some of it's uncomfortable. It's like, this is stupid. This isn't going to work. And I will say, be open-minded or just skip this. Because for you to really benefit from it, you at least have to accept that, okay, Chad might have learned a thing or two, and maybe this could help me. It seems stupid, but I'm going to do it anyways. But I can take that as an open mind, even if that's as close as I can get you. If you'll finish this course, if you'll go through it and at least give me a commitment to try, then I can accept that. But hopefully you're excited and you're like, oh, hell yeah, I'll listen to anything. That's a cool, I want to get that result. Next, I want to ask you to be vivid. So I want you to take deep breaths as you're doing this. Don't feel like there's a time limit to get through this workbook that we're going to talk about. Don't feel like if you get stuck on one field, don't overthink it. But if it's like, oh, if I write this down, everything changes. Be really vivid in your answers. So you want to be able to tie emotions back to these things. Most people set goals, and we'll talk more about that in this next lesson. Most people set goals based on mathematics or other metrics. And you'll see that that's a lot different for me. But be really vivid and building these visions in your head, that picture, the feeling what it's like when you've reached that goal, who you are in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Be vivid in that. There's a lot of neuroscience behind it. I won't go down these rabbit holes, but different time. Be relaxed. I really want this to be fun. Planning is oftentimes such a heavy thing. And trust me, I've had a hard time learning this lesson too. You can try to design your lifestyle as an engineer. You're always going to be disappointed because someone told me a quote when I was in high school. If you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plan. And damn, is that not true? We're going to do our best to set this vision of what the next 5-10 years of your life will look like. If we're naive, we'll put exact numbers to it, and we'll say we're going to work X number of days. If you follow this methodology, be a little bit more relaxed. You don't have to know how the hell it's going to happen. You just have to trust and have faith that it will happen. And that's what being relaxed is in vision setting for me. It's like, I have no clue how the hell I could ever achieve that. But who knows who I'm going to meet. And if I have a vision that I've created with an open mind and vivid visualizations, then I know who I need to look for. I know who I need to help me. Otherwise, if you just say, I'm going to make $10 million, that's just how it is. That's what I'm doing. I'll work my ass off. I'm going to hustle. That's stupid. There's so much easier ways to get to it. You can have fun with this. You can be relaxed. It helps you really, really settle into the emotions of it, which will show you the path. Yours will be different than anyone else's, based on all the millions of variables in your personal life. So just relax. Be selfish about it. You don't have to know everything. Just focus on the outcome. Next, be excited. You should be. If you followed these first few bullet points, this should be exciting. It should be kind of fun. Like, oh, holy crap. And I did, when I first went to Unleash the Power Within with Tony Robbins, there's a workbook associated with that too. And it just seemed like a bunch of damn work. But that was on me because I was taking it to, I was not taking the advice that I've given here in the last 5 or 6 minutes. It wasn't fun for me and I wasn't excited about it because I was taking it too seriously. It was like, oh, this is a doctrine. And it was a lot of my conditioning as a younger man. I was changing the doctrine, so it had to be serious. And there were dire consequences for getting it wrong. That's a bunch of horse shit. Be relaxed. Be excited about this. Have fun with it. So I'm going to talk next. We're going to look at like my journey in this. Like, how did I form these opinions and why am I giving you this kind of advice? Let's look at how I got here. If you haven't taken Probate Mastery, you may not have heard my full story and know why this weirdo is on camera giving you the advice that he is and the way that he is. So I want to take a minute just for mainly for context, and to show you that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to start over. It's okay to burn stuff to the ground and rebuild it. And I think my story is the best way I can teach that because it's a pretty unconventional one. I grew up in a very small community in rural West Virginia where I'm at right now after 15 years of traveling the world and having a really exciting life. I lost multiple family members last year and I came back here. Now, I do want to point out, I've spent the last 16 months making my family a priority. This property was a pretty big priority too because I had to have a nice place to live. But I was able to step away from the communities I've created, the courses, the team that I've built, because I did it deliberately based on value and based on a vision that I had set. Be financially independent, be geographically independent, and only surround yourself with people who have similar values and really are benevolent, that are willing to do what's necessary, but they do expect some value in return. And that's been, this is a whole new chapter is opening up for me as I'm giving you this advice. I'm resetting my vision because I went from literally traveling 9 to 12 months a year. I lived in 23 states in 8 months before I came back here to deal with a family farm after the death of my father. So I grew up here and I've been back here and I'm going through this myself. I have to reset my vision. But I'll start there. There was, no opportunity. But at 7 years old, I was like, you know what? I see how I can provide value to more people. I can collect all the cans that are thrown out of trucks, put them in bags, sell them for scrap, and I started my first business. By the time I was 10 or 11, I was mowing yards and doing lots of things like that. Why that's important is somewhere along the lines, and I still can't put an exact pin on the exact moment. Somewhere I started to think bigger and I started to look at, well, there's so much lack around me. There's such a lack of money and a lack of health and a lack of access to the world. I don't want that. I want something different. And I can remember being like a first grader thinking that stuff. So I started collecting beer cans, and then I realized all the deer hunters that would come in here in November would just skin their deer, throw the hides over the hill and leave to go back home. But there was a guy every other weekend that sat out in front of a grocery store that bought deer hides. So I asked my dad I took my can money, I went to the feed store, I bought a bag of salt, and I had my dad teach me how to scrape and salt hides. Then I started selling those along with the cans, and then I learned about car batteries. So in a community of 15 to 50 people, depending on where you put the boundaries of this community, I was able to, as a kid, as a first grader, I had a checking account full of money, and I became a saver. But I always had this vision. It wasn't really about the money then. It was about a future. And I wish I had a powerful story of the moment that actually happened to me, but I don't. All I have is me starting at 7 years old, thinking differently than almost everyone around me. From there, by the time I got to high school, I wrote a check for a new Jeep. And I had this vision of like, no, you'll be okay. You're not going to need this money. You can buy this Jeep, and this Jeep will help you get to work at a better job. Then that job will pay for college. Don't worry about it. Like, I could make investments. I could take risks with the money that I'd worked so hard for without being in a fear mindset, but being excited about it. And obviously, in retrospect, I've kind of analyzed my behavior as a young man and learned a lot from that. But I'm like, where did it come from? So from there, I went through college for law enforcement and psychology with honors. I carried, on average, 24 semester hours. I took a lot of classes outside of that. I took civil engineering classes. I took, arts and different classes because it was essentially free over 15 hours. And I worked 40 hours a week while doing that. But I had this vision that I set when I was 15 years old. And at first it started out, I had a vision at 15 that I could do more. I could get through college and actually serve my country and my state in a Army Reserve, Army National Guard, and West Virginia State Trooper capacity. So at 15 years old, I was writing letters to the governor and asking to go to Junior Trooper Academy, and I achieved that. I was out of 3,200 applicants. I was the one kid that actually was not a politician or a trooper's son that got in, and I did the West Virginia State Troopers Academy. From that point on, every weight I lifted, every shot I fired was done with a green uniform in my mind. And as I got to college, every night that I didn't sleep and I stayed up studying, that was all because I had that vision. I was focused on being a trooper. Well, along the way, I started to realize, wait, maybe you're thinking too small. Why not swing for the fence? So the beginning of my senior year of college, I applied for the FBI because why the hell not? 22 years old, I can do that, right? Nobody says I can't do it. Everyone says it won't happen, but nobody says I can't apply. A lot of people said I shouldn't, and those were mentors in law enforcement. I did. I applied, and the first 9 pages of my application were 9 failed hearing tests from the U.S. military. I didn't get to serve in the Army because I can't hear 6,000 megahertz, but I did it anyways. I had a vision, and I said, by God, I am more qualified than most anyone I could know at 22 years old. Hell with it. And I did it, and they called, and I got the job. Out of 2,000 applicants that time, 2 of us walked out of there with contracts. And then they offered me a desk job with a big pay raise because someone didn't like my hearing test, even though that we had wavered that. And that wasn't okay with me. So I walked away from a career with the FBI. And I was back at that point. I'm like, what the hell do I do now? I had spent years on this vision. I had achieved it, I thought. And then they tried to replace my dream with a desk job and more money. And it just crushed me. So there I was again. Like, what the hell? Who am I? What am I? What do I do for a living? What am I going to do for money? Like, I didn't think about that. I walked away on principle. I wasn't worried about the money. I didn't want to work for somebody who could just treat me like a piece of damn furniture and say, we said you're going to go here, but you're going to go over here. Here's some cash. Shut up. And I knew in my vision that I had, that wasn't consistent with the kind of man I was willing to be. I wouldn't be treated like furniture. So I said, what the hell am I going to do now? I came back to this community. And I went back to my fencing company that I had started in college and high school. And ironically, the property I'm in right now, I bought my very first fence back 20 years later. It's still tight. It still looks good. So I'm glad I did good work because I ended up being the owner of the damn fence I built. But I did that for a bit. And then I was like, this is all part of the vision. I was like, this is not me. I'm 6'7". I was in incredibly good shape. But I was cutting timber. I was splitting posts by hand. I was driving posts by hand on steep hills. I was, carrying 350-pound rolls of fence. I knew I was going to tear my body down. A 6'7" man doesn't just carry 350-pound rolls of fence on his shoulder for too many years before cartilage and ligaments start to deteriorate, right? So my vision was to be a healthy, wealthy person. And I didn't see how that was going to happen being a fence builder because it would only scale so far. And I wouldn't be healthy for very long if I kept working that damn hard. So I set a new vision. And I'm like, well, what about real estate? Like, there's the ski resort here in our community is the biggest business and the biggest opportunity for most residents. And I'm like, those people are making $150,000 a year. Why don't I do that? So I tell everyone in retrospect, I got into real estate for the wrong reasons. I stayed for the right reasons. And I got in for money because I saw a way to make, 6 figures in a town with a median income of maybe $18,000. And that's when I got into real estate. And from there, I can remember when I first started with InterWest, I was around different people who thought bigger, homeowners that were coming in from all over the eastern seaboard. These people were wealthy, healthy. They were coming to their second or third or fourth home that they had paid somewhere between $200,000 and $2 million for. And that was such a gift. What I said about staying in real estate for the right reasons the peers that I worked with and the clients that I served completely changed how I think. And I had, my expectations of what I was capable of kind of went from here to here because I'm like, they're just people. Like, they just think differently than I do. So I challenged myself again to reset my vision. And I said, I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30 years old. And I did the math. I'm like, okay, so now I'm 24. I got 6 years to pull this off. That means I have to make, and I was like, okay. And I set a numbers goal and I sold my ass off. And I led the teams that I sold on. I left West Virginia, went to Tennessee. 2008 happened. And I was like, oh crap, I'm not going to hit those numbers. Like, there's nobody in resort real estate. Like, big banks pulled all condo loans. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I reset my vision. And at that point, I made myself valuable, and I ended up making a proposal to the developer that landed me a salary position with all living expenses. And I managed the closings for over $1 billion worth of real estate. In that, I got elevated to another level of thinking because one of the projects was an $850 million resort in Kaanapali Beach in Maui. That gave me exposure to more worldly people, homeowners with tens of millions of dollars. And I saw how they lived their lives, and I saw how they thought. And what they thought they were capable of is it's just an overwhelmingly different thing than what I thought I was capable of at 18 or 22 or 26 or 30 when I go through these milestones. So I thought, well, those people look like they're getting a better result than me. I better pay attention. And I started to reset my vision. And that's when I became unemployable. I was living in paradise, working very little, frankly, making a whole lot, frankly, but I was unfulfilled. I was bored. I was free diving as deep. I was seeing how deep I could free dive with no support and alone in the middle of Honolulu Bay. I was bow hunting pigs in the jungle just because of the challenge and because everyone said either the locals or the pigs would kill me. There's no way a haole could hunt in the jungle. And I'm like, okay. And I had gotten to a point where I was literally taking big physical risks just because I was so unfulfilled. I mean, I was making more money than I ever thought I would ever make in my lifetime, every year. And I lived in a beautiful home on the Kaanapali golf course overlooking Lanai and Molokai. And, every day the weather was perfect. I should have been happy. By all outside measures, it was a huge success. But in my heart, it wasn't. Like, it didn't feel right. I knew there was something. So I was wise enough to listen to that. And that began the gap year. I basically burned my career to the ground. I put what I didn't give away, I put on a 20-foot shipping container and sent to Seattle. And there'll be a gentleman that'll come up in the workbook here shortly. You'll see a picture of me and Dave. I sent all of my stuff to Dave's farm. It's about 80 miles south of Seattle. He's lived off grid there for the last 40 some years, or almost 40 some years. Dave he makes his own electricity using vegetable oil on a diesel generator. He drives his trucks on vegetable oil, not biodiesel. This is a straight up innovation. And I went from living in paradise in a multi-million-dollar home, working in a multi-billion-dollar resort at this point, to living in a home, to staying with him for a month in a home made of recycled construction materials. And he was the happiest person he is one of the happiest people I've ever met in my life. And he lives on so little. I mean, so little. But he's extremely intelligent. He's extremely thoughtful and a conversationalist. Dave I just talked to him 2 days ago. Celebrated his 84th birthday. Thank goodness. But I spent a month with him working cattle that he hadn't worked because he was too old to take care of them. There's lots of interesting stories. And at this time, I'm like, I just kind of hit pause and I didn't have a vision. I was like, I'm going to let this happen because I know how I don't want to feel. Let me just explore how I do want to feel. So I just went, I worked cattle. I helped him hang drywall. We went and gathered up vegetable oil for his fuel reserves. We went fishing. We literally would just take days and drive out to the coast and just joke with people. We would do improv comedy and just play pranks on fishermen. Just fun stuff. And that led me to a vision of adventure. And I'm like, I'm going to get on my motorcycle and I'm going to go live in the Canadian wilderness until I can get clear on what's next. So I got on my bike. I threw a backpack, grossly underprepared, lashed it on with a cam buckle strap, and off to British Columbia I go through the Cascade Mountains, across the border, and into the wilderness. And that's where I spent the next couple of months. You guys, if you've listened to the podcast, you may have heard this story. There was one particular night in Hartley Lake near Fernie, British Columbia. We're at a moment, and it wasn't expecting it. This whole trip was about a leather-bound journal, a fly rod, and a cheap Canon T2i camera. So it was about creativity and clarity. And that was really it. No plan, no schedule, no maps, no rules. Barely any food. I had freeze-dried food and water filters. And I pretty much just lived off the bike. I would find a town to get gas every couple days. And being isolated for that amount of time gave me the opportunity for anything to come to me. So I didn't try to control it. I didn't try to set a vision at this point. I was just being. And this is a very, very valuable lesson in my life. That night, I was trying to fly fish. It was a really muddy edge. There were huge Kamloops rainbow trout, like sucking flies off this perfectly still surface of Hartley Lake. I'm the only one around for God knows how many miles. And they were just out of casting reach. They were like 70 feet out there. And no matter how hard I casted, I just couldn't get it to land, a dry fly to land out there softly. So I decided to just quit trying to control the situation, put the rod down, and enjoy the moment. What came to me like in the next 2 or 3 minutes was, Chad, you need to always help others more than yourself. You should be selfish and net 6 figures so you can live and give the way you want and be able to run it from anywhere in the world with an iPhone. And I'm like, where the hell did that come from? Some people may say that God sat down beside them and spoke to them or whatnot. Maybe it was my intuition. Maybe it was God. It wasn't expected. I was focused on the fish that I couldn't catch. And I got I had, the first time I'd ever thought about this, the first time the words had ever entered my mind. So I went to my journal and I wrote it down. I had no idea how profound that would be. It just kept going around in my head that night. I barely slept. And the next morning I got up and I sat at the same spot by the lake. I was in the mountains so deep that the sun didn't come up until probably 10 o'clock. So I had to wait for my gear to dry before I packed it up anyways, because I didn't like musty tents. So I just sat there and sat with that. And then I was like, all right, so what is, like, that's a different kind of vision. I was setting vision based on money. Like, what if if I pass everything through the filter of those 3 rules, what does life look like? And that began the next evolution of thinking for me. I'll fast forward a week or so. That was toward the end of the trip. I flew my dad out from West Virginia, my dog from Maui. He had been staying with friends. And I did a dad-dog-son trip across the United States. We did 12,000 miles with my Chevy Avalanche and a trailer with my stuff in it. And we just camped, just the 3 of us. And that gave me a couple of months to just really connect with my dad. He was completely out of his comfort zone. I got to show him all the beautiful places I had gone to in my 20s, all the national parks and all the cool little towns and good fit and secret fishing holes. And we had the trip of a lifetime. He literally died talking about it. And that was something else to me. That affected how I set vision. I'm like, what really matters? The money isn't what matters that much. It's the people and the experiences that matter. So I started looking at that. Like, what people and experiences do I want in my life? Like, what am I going to do next? I'm quite literally homeless and unemployed, living in a tent, and I have been for months. I'm living on savings, but I didn't let fear be the doctor in there. I didn't let fear govern me. I let my sense of adventure and love for my dad and my dog and wanting to lay down those experiences. That was my primary motivation until I got back east. And this is where I started to make the mistakes. So I said, I'm going to be a real estate investor. That sounds interesting. So I first had to choose a town. I had from Hawaii been underwriting different cities, had a short list of 6. Ended up choosing Roanoke, Virginia. Knew nobody there. Had no contacts, no experience. Never spent the night in the town. I'd driven through it. So I go down there, and I go to what's called a Real Estate Investors Association meeting. I had no clue what that was, but I found it online, and I'm on meetup.com, was pretty new at the time. And I was like, oh, I'll go check that out. And I heard a guy there say, well, I'm a private lender. Another guy said, I'm a wholesaler. And I'm like, how the hell? I've sold $100 million in real estate and closed over $1 billion. What the hell's a wholesaler? Like, I was, by all measures, successful real estate professional. I had I had 4 licenses, but I had never sold a house. I didn't know what a wholesaler was. And that night, I didn't sleep. I literally stayed up all night reading, watching videos. And at that time, there was a lot less on the internet than there is now. Sean Terry was just getting started. If you guys have followed him, I don't even know if he was calling it Flip to Freedom at that time. But I started to set this whole new vision of what I saw these people doing. Lots and lots of money and lots of time off. And just, this is going to be easy money wholesaling. And I sat down, I wrote, a business outline. I pulled the trigger within, I think it was around the third week of October when I went to my first real estate investors meeting. Then I came back the next week, and I had a birthday. And then the following week, I formed my first LLC. On November 13th of 2011. And I was like, it was Resolutions LLC, capital R, capital E for real estate solutions. My vision had crystallized so well that I saw a vertically integrated company that I had to create a brand that would fit it. Real Estate Solutions, or Resolution, because I already knew that I was going to have an affinity towards problem solving. So I saw a vertically integrated real estate company. It had brokerage. Within brokerage, it had buyer services, seller services, property management services, and the investment silo. Everything we talked about above and what opportunity exists in real estate, it had all of those. We were going to do wholesaling. We would buy and sell. We would buy and hold. We would do new construction. We would do lending. And then eventually title, so we could literally handle anything and everything around a real estate transaction. That was the vision, and Real Estate Solutions, or Resolutions, was the brand. And I proudly cast off into a whole new vision, and very quickly got wrapped up in setting metrics based on numbers and number of transactions, number of dollars, number of this and that. And what I ended up doing was realizing, and a lot of this is healthy because this is where I had my probate aha moment. I've dropped my first mail campaign. I officially moved my stuff into a rental on January 12th of 2012. I sent my first mail campaign the next day, or the next business day. I think it might have been a Saturday, and I sent it on a Monday. Anyways, I took action immediately. I had the list, I had the letter, I unloaded the second I was there to get return mail or get cell phone calls. I was there. I was an investor. And like I told you in earlier lessons here, I didn't like it. So I kind of reset my vision, and I was like, nah, I can be better than this. I can provide more service. I can monetize every real estate conversation. What that meant is I had to learn creative financing. I had to get my 4th real estate license in Virginia. I had to raise my standard of service, and I had to subscribe to a code of ethics. So I had to be, as an investor, I had to be more careful than a lot of the other people that I was learning from. I'm like, oh, that's kind of edgy. I don't know if that's an ethical gray area. And I set another vision. I'm like, nope, that's not my identity. I'm this kind of professional. I can provide all of these services. And that became my new vision. What that ultimately ended up becoming was a golden cage. I built a real estate team. I was flipping houses. I was doing private money loans. I had a portfolio. I had 104 on-market deals and I think 68 off-market deals in that last year. And then I started thinking, well, I could teach other people how to do what I'm doing in probate, because hell, I can do 100 deals on license by myself. Why can't I teach other people how to do that? Yesterday, actually, I Facebook showed me the anniversary of me buying my first BMW motorcycle. And that was because I got to a point where I was unfulfilled again. And I went back and I looked at that trip through Canada and the trip with my dad and my dog and the way that felt and those 3 rules. And I'm like, you broke all 3 of these. Not only broke, you shattered all 3 of these. You're geographically dependent. You have no time independence. You're not netting the 6 figures to give away. You're working your ass off. You got high gross but low margin. And it just wasn't working. So I bought the motorcycle. I took it for a couple of rides. I let fear hold me back from doing what I knew was best for me. And as I said earlier in the course, like if your cup isn't full, you can't be as valuable as you can be to everyone else. I wasn't as valuable to anyone around me because I was neglecting my own needs to achieve these arbitrary goals that I wrote down on paper, these numbers. So I burned it to the ground a second time. June 30th of 2014, I shut down the investment company, the holding company, and the lending company. I stopped all operations across all 3, sold the assets. The worst part of that was letting a team go. But I'm still friends with every single one of those people. I'm still friends with my clients. I'm still friends with the people I loaned money to. I had to set personal boundaries. So there I was again. What the hell am I going to do now? I had just helped co-found a company called All the Leads. We were gathering probate data nationwide. We had done about 60 grand in revenue in 6 months. It wasn't getting off the ground with 4 partners. And I'm like, those 3 things that I said, like I could help others more than myself or more than my clients here in Roanoke. I could reach thousands more people if I served at the head of a lead company. And I could probably net 6 figures so I can live and give, what I don't spend on myself. And I bet I could do that, maybe not from an iPhone, but definitely from an iPhone and a MacBook anywhere in the world. So I called my partners. I said, I'm going to step out of production. I think I can serve at a higher level. I can have a bigger impact, and I can be a better teacher, a better coach, and a better business partner if I do these things. If I don't do these things, it scared the hell out of me. I thought stepping out of production would dull my skill set. I would lose credibility. I still have my license down there with the same broker, but I stepped out on July 1st. I was out, and it was scary. The next 16 days, I used that vision of that lifestyle vision. I used that to build the Probate Mastery course. That's where it was born. So in 16 days, I completely built a new WordPress site. I rebuilt Probate Mastery. I laid out digital marketing campaigns, which I fell on my face for weeks, but when I finally got that to hit, I was like, wow. So the net result of that hard decision and going through vision setting again was in the next 6 months, I rode that motorcycle almost every day. Not only did I ride it, I met a professional trainer, and he and I really enjoyed riding with each other because he would keep me out of my comfort zone. He's an excellent rider. So I would push him, he would push me, and we had each other's back. 117 of 180 nights in the second half, we camped and we rode those motorcycles deep into the wilderness and camped where there was no cell service. At the same time, the 16 days that I put into developing a course, developing a customer journey, serving at my highest level when I was working, we did over $1 million in revenue in the second half. Now, it wasn't because we took anything from the marketplace. It's because of what my focus, like me being selfish enough to shut down companies, selfish enough to let jobs go with people that I truly love, selfish enough to say, I just want to ride my damn motorcycle so I can be my best when I'm at my damn desk. That selfishness and having the courage to do it proved to me that I could make my first $1 million in revenue. And it was not all done by me. Obviously, I was in the woods camping a lot. But I had surrounded myself with partners who supported me, who knew who I was, who were clear in that vision. And I had reset expectations with clients, with parents, with friends, with partners, with everyone, that I was going to be Chad, and that was going to look a little different. but I was going to be more valuable to them when I was around. And that was the start of a really extremely exciting period in my life. We scaled all the leads up. I kept getting probate mastery, kept getting better and better. We built our communities until I got to a point. I was traveling the world doing philanthropy work. You'll see in the workbook there's some other things I've been able to do. I've reset this several times. I envisioned myself as a philanthropist. I'm very good at riding off-road motorcycles, and I hate that like there's so many people in the world that don't have access to clean water. So I was like, and I love photography, so I'm like, what if I can put all these together? I set a vision for that, and it just basically fell to me. So we'll see more about that in the workbook. But that next chapter was the really, really difficult decision to step away from being the co-owner of a leads company that used leads to attract people in. So I had the opportunity to be able to teach and influence and tell them the things I did that would help serve families at the highest level and share those stories, success stories and failure stories. But in order to evolve into what I really thought I wanted to do next, which hint, it's right here, I had to close another door. I had to start over again. I had to have the courage to reset that vision. So in January of 21, I actually sold my shares of all the leads. I started the company Magnum Opus Project. I took the Probate Mastery course, pulled out into a new container, so to speak, with the trusted team members that I had, and we relaunched it. And then I moved in 23 days. I converted my home into a rental, midterm rental. I leased it fully furnished to a CFO, bought a fifth wheel, turned a toy hauler, turned the garage portion into a hybrid garage studio that doesn't look much different than my home studio. And we took off, and we lived in 23 states. And then I was on the West Coast begging my parents to come out because I wanted them to experience what we had experienced. In 8 months, we had just went to national parks, state parks, and just enjoyed the best of everywhere we were. In 8 months, we covered 23 states all the way. We were as far south as Miami and as far in the extreme northwest, like up around Forks, Washington. And I was sitting in Washington in the Hoh River Basin, and I was thinking, what's next? Where do I want to go next? What's my vision? What are my goals? And I really just wanted to spend more time with my parents. They wouldn't come. I couldn't send them plane tickets. They wouldn't rent a car. So my vision led me to write a letter to the owner of the inheritance, the heir that had inherited this house and let it sit here for 6 years with hundreds of leaks in the roof and major mold problems. I sent a letter. This was in September of 21. And 2 weeks later, I get a phone call, and they said, hey, they just came here. They drove from St. Louis all the way up here, like 12 hours or more, to say, yeah, we'd like to sell him the house. So then I hammered it home, and I bought this place, like I told you, for 15 cents on the dollar. 4 hours later, the hospital called. Dad had gone from COVID to massive strokes. It was foggy mountain weather. We couldn't get him out of here, and that ultimately led to his demise 21 days later. Everything changed again. So I had to reset my vision. I'm like, who the hell am I? Do I shut the businesses down? Do I leave mom here to try to figure this out on her own? And I had to go back to the vision table. And that's when I set a vision to be the best damn family member I could be. I hand dug my father's grave on my 40th birthday. I took him to the grave on a cedar wagon with a team of draft horses, and handed out his favorite rifles to his favorite men and gave him a salute and covered him up. I had to run toward it. I had to be strong because I knew I had to look at this as whatever I was envisioning before just changed. Everything just changed. And this is who I need to be now. So I reset that vision, and I changed my intent with this property. It was just supposed to be another fun real estate story. It became home, or a second home, a temporary home. And I poured my heart into this and designing it and rehabbing it, making it as best possible. I've worked on the farm. I've done, you wouldn't believe what the last 15, 16 months have been. And that brings me to here. and I reset a vision. And what come out of that is taking Estate Professionals Mastermind, a brand that I envisioned 2 years ago when I was leaving, when I was just getting this started, and actually doing, like, getting clarity around what change I want to see in the world, and how I can deliver on that. So since 31 days ago, um, my whole vision changed. On Boxing Day, I sat down and I said, what does life look like now? What do you deserve? What do you want? How do you want to serve? Who the hell do you want to be? Who are you in 5 years? And Estate Professionals Mastermind came to the top. Like, that was it. That's what I feel compelled to do. My vision now, I'll show you some of this in the workbook. I filled mine out, but my vision is to create a community that, regardless of what might happen in my life, when I have to change directions or change my vision, you have a resource of peers, of education, of all the things I've learned, all the lessons, all the things, stupid things I've done that I'll tell you were mistakes and teach you about, all the effective things I've done that have changed my life and the lives of others. I want a container, but I want it to be autonomous. I want it to be as valuable to you as it is to me. I want you to want to be here as much as I do. And I want this thing to live on well beyond me. I want to give you an opportunity to go from a student into a mentor slot, and to the point where you're like, nothing will threaten this. It means too much to the world. And that's my vision now. It's audacious. I'll give you that. But it's kind of my journey in getting here. There's a whole lot of, you can see how often I change my mind, how often this shifts. Life happens. So don't be so naive to think that you're going to do this once and get it in black and white, and that's just going to be it. Like, oh, set my vision, better go. It just doesn't work that way. So anyways, this has run long, guys. It's a lot of I and me, but I think that there's a lot of things I can use to teach from my story, because I have been to all 50 states. I've been to 24 countries. I was able to hit financial independence and retire at 38, but it just didn't feel right. I wanted to continue to contribute. And now I think I realize I probably never will retire. I think I'm in this. It's my sport. This is what contributing and being able to challenge myself to progress, and innovate, and coming up with new relationships and new ideas, and being able to bring them back here and watch you guys benefit from that. That's what fuels my soul. So it changes. I'll probably be back to the drawing board, hell, probably by the end of this year. Who knows? But that's okay. That's kind of the point. I want you to know that you can always come back to this course. It's okay if your vision changes. Come back as many times. If you ever feel stuck, come right back here first. You can skip through this. You don't have to listen to my story. Just go back to the workbook. Erase all your answers. Start over fresh. Set your new vision. Take action on it. So hopefully that was not boring, and you found some value in it. Let's jump into the vision workbook. This is where the fun begins. Okay, so if you've made it this far and you've watched every video and stayed engaged with an open mind, congratulations, and thank you for doing that. I realize this is an unconventional path into what you thought might be a real estate mastermind. But if you're connecting with this, thank you for that. That means I've laid out something valuable. Now we're getting into the meat of this now. So we've discussed a lot of theory. When I first set out to design the customer journey through this mastermind, that starts with, someone who's never heard of us, never even thought about probate, coming through to being a student in our courses, to being a member of the community, to being a member mentor, and actually own part of this and take it forward with your mark on it. I looked at my own journey through this, which, if you've listened to if you've watched each of the videos, you've heard my journey through goal setting, through vision setting, through planning. You've seen the mistakes that I made. One of the things that became apparent to me when I first started teaching probate mastery was that people would enthusiastically sit through 15 to 16 hours of live training over 3 days. And somewhere around the day after or the next day, people would be like, "Oh, that was amazing. Best class I've ever taken. I feel like I should have paid $5,000. What do I do now?" And it's because it's a massive amount of information, but also because they're looking at doing something novel, something they've never done. They don't have, sometimes don't have a personal mentor day to day. So everyone has asked me, like, what about an action plan? Just step by step, give me a checklist. What things to do in what order? And if you've already taken probate mastery, you know how difficult that would be. We literally talk about hundreds and hundreds of different variables for ranging from what you do, whether you're in brokerage, investment, or both, and how hard you're willing to work, whether you're virtual or remote, whether you want to have a team or not, if you just want to earn referral fees, or if you want to get full commissions, if you just want to wholesale, or if you want to actually like maximize wealth creation and minimize taxation. The checklist it would be an infinite pile of personal action plans. So when I challenge myself to still deliver what you're demanding, I was surprised that it came out this way. And the tool that I ended up with is the workbook that we're going to use for the rest of this course. So you want to download this. It's designed as a workbook rather than a slide deck, because the other realization I had when teaching probate mastery is everybody wanted a slide deck. And for me, that slide deck was just bullet points. It wasn't that useful without commentary. And I felt like a lot of people were asking for it because it was to have a crutch, and they would end up using it as a listing presentation or in a seller presentation. And I just didn't think it would serve them. So I've always said no. As I've evolved and improved as a teacher and a course creator over the last really 15, 16 months since we moved courses into Magnum Opus Project, we've developed, dozens of workbooks and checklists and guides that are part of the Probate Mastery course and the Earn course. So I'm evolving. I'm becoming better at what I do. I hope I hope you guys agree. And the reason this is a workbook is I think this is something you'll constantly come back to. As you heard in my journey story, I've had to come back to this drawing table multiple times. I'm 41 years old at the time of this recording, and I've told you about 5 different lifetimes that I've lived already, right? So it's okay. The whole point of this is to create a central entry point into the community where if you ever feel stuck or you feel like you want to grow in a different direction, or you just want to grow in general, you come back here and start fresh. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just if you follow that advice that I gave you in the beginning is, be vivid about it, be honest with yourself, relax and have fun doing it. And you'll come out of this with an emotional attachment to a certain outcome, and things will start to fall into place. It's amazing how the universe works when you're providing value and you're clear on what you want in return. Like, that's true benevolence. I know who I want to be and the things and experiences I want as part of that. Now, who the hell can I help to get there? And that's really the benevolence at its best. So we've got this workbook. It's made as a fillable PDF. It was made in Adobe Acrobat Pro. So you should, if you have Adobe Reader, pretty much any free PDF software will open this and allow you to use the fillable fields. Or you can print this and do it with a pen as we go along. Doesn't matter to me. I tried to design it to appeal to everybody, and hopefully it does. So this is what we're going to follow throughout the session. I'll leave my video here because one of the other things I've learned is, for some reason, people like to see me when we're doing this. So I've never taught from a workbook like this for such an important thing, but this is, and I won't go through and read everything. You've already heard a good chunk of my story and the parts that are relevant to this exercise. So let's jump in. I'll kind of summarize. So this is, for future reference when you're not watching the course video, if you have this, it kind of tells you why we did this. So essentially what I'm saying here is, I think this is the best entry point that I can create for a mastermind community around estate professional careers. I'd like for you to, just have an open mind to go through this, no matter how uncomfortable it feels or how much you don't want to do it. If you could just trust me on this. You heard how I've pushed myself through this and I found the courage to do this. I'm just asking you for the same. So The way this is going to happen from here, we're going to go through a primer, and I'm going to have you kind of look at your life and ask yourself some really serious questions. And we're going to look at some things that aren't very fun to, like, some realities that aren't really fun to look at. You're used to seeing them. You see them in your clients. It's a big part of your career. But just like we can't be our own counselors, sometimes it's really hard to get us to think about our own demise and to actually face that as a reality. So we're going to start with some of those, those stark realities. Then we're going to move to the fun part. We're literally going to design our business, our life, and then we're going to design a business around that. So you can read this if you have a copy downloaded, and I'm going to jump on. Now, earlier, when I was telling my story about when I left Hawaii and shipped my stuff to Washington to live with my old hippie friend off grid, it was this guy. This is Dave. And I couldn't help but put him in here because so many people hang out with people their own age pretty much exclusively. Probably part of the reason I started a business at 7 years old and was writing checks for vehicles by the time I got to high school. I was mentored in the field, in the woods, in life in general, by some very, very generous older gentlemen that were friends of my grandfather's, friends of my father's, and became friends of mine. Not, oh, it's nice, we'll let the boy come along, but truly friends, like people to this day that I still cherish and I'm still friends with. And one of the really unfortunate parts about that is losing in your 20s and 30s, starting to lose some of your best friends, the people you've placed the highest value on because they taught you the most. When everybody else was drinking beer and watching football and that's all they had stories to about, these older people, this generation ahead of me, they were willing to share knowledge and wisdom and teach you things. And that's gone it's gotten me so much further ahead in my life because it's not that I didn't watch football or I didn't play sports or play video games or waste time. It's that most of the time I was spending quality time with quality humans who were willing to pour themselves into me and share those best lessons, share that wisdom with me. So this is Dave. He's one of my best friends in the world. 2 nights ago, in my best opera voice, of course, I sung him happy birthday. He's in Washington. I'm in West Virginia. I try to get out there at least once a year for at least a month, but I haven't. So he got an opera voice happy birthday call from me. On this day, he wrapped up. He had never been salmon fishing. I think he was 82 on this day. Never been offshore salmon fishing. And I woke him up at 2 a.m. and said, come on, we're going. And I got us on a boat out of Westport, Washington. And at the end of the day, we had a ball. And at the end of the day, I'll never forget this. He pulled me aside and he said, son, he always calls me son. We're not kin, but he's like a grandfather to me. He said, son, I'm going to tell you, today is a day to be memorialized. It's been one of the top 3 days of my life. For me, it was just a nice gesture, just a way to hang out and have fun. I had more, I feel like I had more fun than he did. But when he said that, I'm like, well, maybe I didn't. But so anyways, he's very meaningful to me. The thing about the biggest lesson I took from Dave is, he worked his ass off doing lots of different things. He worked for the Atomic Energy Corps. He quit that, left the Cadillac in the desert, went gold mining, broke Mustangs, come back, built sailboats, built houses in Queen Anne and Vashon Island, like houses that are now probably $2 million. Lived just a really eclectic, amazing lifestyle, but it was always led with love. Everyone, if you meet this man, everyone around him adores him because he's just value. He found a way to provide value to everyone. And the reason he's in here is, even though he's 84 years old, you get in this picture, we're both in our 20s. I mean, we were living our best life. And I learned so much from him, the contrast of coming from like a high achieving, high paying career in Hawaii to this. Like, it was a stark contrast to somebody who barely even needs money to survive, somebody who has, by outside measures of modern society, wouldn't have a pot to piss in, but he's really one of the wealthiest people I know. They've taught me so much about what's really valuable and how valuable time is. And he said to me one day, son, we were in a hayfield, and he's like, we were talking about like quantum physics, and he looks a little bit like Albert Einstein anyways, but we were discussing, metaphysics and quantum physics and, interesting things and how the universe works. And he's taught me to make, different chemicals, and like he literally can make almost anything out of natural resources. And he said, son, it's a damn shame. And I was like, what? And he's like, I just wish I could, my old body's wearing out. I just wish I could take what's in my head and put it in yours, because you could do so much more with it. It's a damn shame I have to waste it. So anyways, but moments like that have shaped who I am. Not to belabor this and try to introduce you to my whole life story, but for context, like there's probably a Dave in your life. There's probably that someone that you're like, I probably should listen to them more. And this, I think, is the most important thing that I could ever teach, is how to, I've spoke about these stories. I've told these stories from stages privately and exclusive masterminds. And it's always shocking to me how a group full of multi-millionaires older than me I get such a profound reaction from them, like the emotions that it brings up, because I don't think they did it the way I did it. I think they led with money. They led with ego, with keeping score. And here they are in their 50s and they've never really been anywhere exciting. It's always someday. And Dave was one of those people at the right time in my life. At 29 years old, I found the courage myself to make the move. But when I landed at his place as my pivot point to whatever was next, I believe he made a huge impact on me becoming a benevolent man that lives on purpose. And so that's super important to me. So I wanted to put that in here, just mainly to make you think about, who are these people in your life, the ones you might be overlooking, and what wisdom have they tried to share with you that you might have outright rejected or just didn't sink in. And I want you to think about those people, and I want you to go share this. When we're done with this, I want you to go share with them who they are to you and how much that means. And I'll probably share this recording with Dave. I may not, I don't know. But I want you to look at, you're only going to be here for so long. And this is a pretty depressing part of this. This is what I was talking about. Some of it might not be so fun. You can zoom in on this, or if you have a printed copy, what I've provided here at first is the first graph that you see is life expectancy for United States citizens. And the life expectancy in the US is declining pretty significantly as healthcare costs skyrocket. So for this purpose, I wanted to use pre-pandemic data because it gets distorted. If you use pandemic data, it's like, oh, it's getting really bad really fast. This was up to 2018 or 19. But if you look on this axis, you have life expectancy, and on this axis, you have increase in healthcare cost. Almost every developed country in the world is running pretty consistently together. The United States, we're dying younger and spending exponentially more money to live less time. It's illogical. There's a lot of ways that it is logical. It seems irrational to me. This number right here, this is the current statistic coming out of 2022. The U.S. male can expect to live 73.2 years now. Females are 79.9. And I think that blended average is like 76.3. So not very much fun to look at as our reality, but you can expect that your healthcare costs are going to rise and your life expectancy is going to decline if you live an average life. This is obviously the averages. So let's look at birth rates. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of people are blaming the millennial generation for all the jobs unfilled and McDonald's paying $800 sign-on bonuses with daily pay and all this. It's simply a labor force participation problem, and this is just the beginning of it. In 1990, the U.S. birth rate peaked and has plummeted. And if you look at it on a straight trajectory, has plummeted. What's really interesting is we recovered from that until we hit the financial crisis of 2007. Then the birth rate plummeted. So if you were in the business back then, think about, I think the statistic was 38% of millennials were living back with their parents or in co-living situations. And we were all saying, when are they going to start buying houses? It's because they had to, they didn't have that. They weren't in a position to. But the other thing they weren't doing other than buying houses was having children. And you see the birth rate plummeting. And why is that important to you? You're in real estate, you're not in healthcare. Well, it's important because your labor force participation from here is going to continue to get worse unless we have a policymakers that will actually amend immigration law and change the demographics of our country. It's very likely that the rest of your career and the rest of your life, you're going to be dealing with increased cost across the board, healthcare, food, everything. And you're also going to be dealing with a workplace that isn't replacing itself. The baby boomers that we're serving are retiring, and between now and 2031, all of them will be retirement age. Now, the unfortunate truth of the current economic situation is a lot of them will have to work until they die. But by 2060, most of them won't be with us either. And that's leaving a huge hole in the labor force. So it's very likely if you live an average life, you're going to have to pay more and more and more every year, and you have less and less and less likelihood to reach an older age than you see here. And it's not very fun statistics, but you do have a choice, and the choice is to be well the hell above average. You know, we're using averages here, which can be tricky in data and in statistics, but I expect the fact that you're here places you well above average. So don't let this depress you too much. You know, we have members who are active, like people who have CPEs that are into their 80s that are kicking ass out there helping families. Like literally the decedent is younger than the real estate professional that's helping the family. And that's super cool, because it gives them purpose. It gives them something to do. It gives them something they're proud of. Those people aren't working because they have to work. It's not to pay the bills. They're working on purpose. And that's what's super cool. Like they're deliberate about this. So I want you to think about, what does it look like if you haven't lived deliberately? I want you to think about it. It's really your best choice, because chances are, from economic and medical standpoint, you're probably going to have a lower quality of life than you expect. We're going to see, for the first time in several generations, a lower quality of, we're very likely to see, unless the Federal Reserve continues to crank out money at trillions of dollars a year and somehow we can live with modern monetary policy long term, chances are your quality of life is going to decline, because we can only take that so far before devaluing the currency. So we have to take some measures to rein that back in. It doesn't mean that everybody will suffer. Even in the darkest of economic times in the United States in 1929, we had a 24.9% unemployment rate. In 2008, you probably survived that, and you probably found ways to do better in that environment. So you're already above average. Now let's take you from average to exceptional. Let's see if we can make your life even better than it is now. But again, we've been conditioned our whole lives to be good little economic soldiers and to do things a certain way. And I'm going to ask you, just even if it's just for the next hour, just drop that for a minute. Consider a lifestyle where you can just make a choice to be happy, wealthy, and healthy. And you could literally design it that way. And no one can tell you that. They'll tell you they're wrong. They'll tell you you're going to fail. They'll tell you you can't do it. But you can say, listen, man, I'm going to work less, earn more, and do good while I do it. I'm taking 180 days a year off. I'm going to make $1 million a year, and I'm going to help everyone that'll pick up the phone. Like, that's your right. You can do this. And so many people get scared to even think this way. So that's a big part of the reason I've laid out my story and been kind of vulnerable and transparent, is I want you to tap into that in yourself. Like, say, you know what, I'm gonna have fun with this. I'm gonna see what it might look like. And you might get scared and go back to doing things the way you always have and getting the result that you've always been pleased with. But if you engage with this and you have a breakthrough, you might achieve, like, we're all so much more capable of than what we think of. If you remember through my story, as I moved up from, law enforcement to real estate, I started thinking differently because I was around people who are healthy and wealthy and happy and just blowing money like crazy. And in my current mindset, they were just blowing money. They weren't. They were investing in lifestyle. They see that as an investment. It's a memory with their kids. And then I took that to the next level. And now I have amazing friends that are worth just crazy amounts of money. You would never know it. They're modest, they're happy, they're healthy. They're not running around bragging or buying supercars or, taking selfies with Instagram face. They're just everyday, regular people. But they thought the way that I'm going to try to lead you through this exercise. So life is short. This next part is going to be eye-opening. What you're looking at is 90 squares. Now, I want to give credit to an acquaintance of mine, Trav Bell, who's widely known as the bucket list guy. Trav was the first person that put this exercise in front of me. And he basically said, put an X in all the years you've lived, and we're going to look at how many you have left. Then we're going to tie that to your bucket list, all the things you want to do in life. I have taken that inspiration and kind of turned it into our own exercise. So step one, I want you to put an X in all the squares you've already lived in this life. Now, again, there's 90 squares. Some of you might be David Sinclair fans, and some of you may prescribe to I'm going to live to be 175 years old. Unless your name's Methuselah, I don't see any proof of that. I do respect Harvard research, and I do respect Dr. Sinclair, but he's not an MD and he doesn't have proof. So I'm a bit of a skeptic. Chances are most of us will probably go within this 90 boxes. If you need more boxes, take a pen and draw them in. There's extra room. You can go wide and you can go up. But for me, realistically, at 6'7", based on my family medical history, even though I'm healthy, I've basically marked out 80s and 90s as my body's not going to be in great shape just because of the activities that I do and just I'm a big man. So you can see I've lived 41 years of the X's. And then I've got the last 20 years is like, I'm probably not going to be able to use my body to do the things that I really enjoy most, which are backcountry camping and backpacking, pretty aggressive mountain biking, riding off-road motorcycles, adventure motorcycles, and very technical, aggressive terrain, living off of those bikes. Like those things are pretty dangerous and require a pretty high level of physical fitness. So chances are when I'm 80 and 90, I'm not going to be riding a 650-pound motorcycle through the mountains of British Columbia unsupported, with no one knowing where I'm at. But these next 3 years, I'm pretty sure, based on the people I've trained, I do motorcycle training. And the oldest, Bob, he's nicknamed by the book Bob because he wanted to know exactly how to do every exercise. He was 84 when I took him through an advanced class on a 650-pound GS. And I had the guy jumping like 18-inch logs on a massive motorcycle. And he trusted me to do it. And so I hope to be Bob. I hope that in my 80-year range here, I can still do these things. But I chose to take a little more conservative route and mark out those last 20 years as I'm probably not going to be able to do those things that make me feel most alive right now. Again, I can always come back to this, and I'm very likely will adjust that. My lifestyle preferences will change. The hobbies that I do will probably change. But the idea here is to look, I have 29 squares left. Now, step 3 is look at how many squares you have left and then make a decision. What amount of each of those boxes are you going to spend working? If you think about it, like a school teacher typically works about 180 days a year, right? They only have half a box if you talk about lifestyle. So if they have 20 boxes left, they really only have 10 because the other 10 are going to be spent working, doing things they may or may not enjoy it, but it's still not their lifestyle. That's their career. So you need to look at this and say, how much of each box is career and how much is lifestyle? And how am I going to spend that? And only you can answer this. This is where I don't have advice to give other than this tool can help you get to a point to create a moment where you can say, holy shit, I only have 2 rows left, or I have a row and a half left. I got to be wise with this. Like if I'm going to achieve the career goals that I want, and I'm going to get my life, like live my life, I got to do X, and that will come next. This is where we get into, okay, once we define what it takes to really have the ideal lifestyle and a career that's complementary, what are the things that we need to do? So if you need to, pause the video and finish this exercise. Again, step 3 would be to look at that, look at the squares that are unmarked, no X's, no O's, and look at it and ask yourself, for me to live my best life, what is the balance within these vacant squares? How much of my time am I going to spend working versus doing the things I love, regardless of what that is? So you can pause the video, go do that, and I'll be here when you get back. Okay, now one extension of that last exercise, I want you to write down how you feel. So was this heavy for you? Did it make you feel depressed? Were you like, why would he do this? This is such a downer. This sucks. Like, that's okay. Like, I want you to document your authentic feelings. And I did this last night when McKenna finished this workbook, and I took a trip through it myself. Here's what I had. I sat and wrote, like, I looked at that exercise, and I've obviously done this before. Like I said, I did it with Trav, but I didn't subtract the years I expect my body not to hold up. And it elicited a little bit of fear in me. Like, I crave intellectual challenges as much as I do adventure and exploration. So I've got 3 lines left to do the things that took me 2 lines to get really good at. But when I look at that, like how much fun the last 20 years have been, and I feel like I've been blessed with living 3 different lifestyles. In the same breath, like, I'm thinking, 29, holy shit, I got a lot of time to have fun. There's so many great things I can do in that. And for me, this company and other companies that I run have become really fun outlets. It's a place for me to put value in, pull cash out, and then give cash to other areas, like in clean water and other philanthropic things. So it was a little bit dark in the beginning for me, looking at like the feelings, but then I started to shift my perspective immediately. And I'm like, oh hell, I got 29 good years. And then who knows, maybe by then I just want to sit around and read books anyways. So those next 20 years might be my best years ever. Like between 80 and 90 might be the most fun I've ever had, because who knows where the technology will be. I'm sitting here talking on a 4K camera, with a advanced microphone. And I'm going to look back at this and laugh. By the time I'm 80 years old, I can probably teach courses through telekinesis or something. So the unknown is really exciting to me. And I feel like I'm looking at this with a mindset of gratitude, not a mindset of fear or lack. And I want you to do the same. Look at that exercise, those 90 squares, and look at your results. How does it make you feel? And I've left you with a quote here from a lady who's worth over $4.5 billion. And I think she stands as a good example. It's a good example of mindset. So with the mindset she has, and she shares in this quote, she's become a multi-billionaire and a philanthropist. She's created excess that she can give away, but the excess was created by working less, earning more, and doing good. So I'll leave you with this. I'll give you just a minute, pause the video, write down your feelings. And I mean, be authentic. Nobody has to read this if you don't want them to, but don't bullshit yourself. Like, write down how you feel, knowing how many years you think you have left in prime lifestyle years. And I'll see you when you turn it back on. Okay. So now we'll shift gears, get a little out of theory a little bit more and into logic, or out of emotion and into logic. So we're going to go through a personal and lifestyle assessment. Then we'll do another exercise, and then into a business assessment. So these are personal questions, like the money that flows to you from your business. Now, it's a bit of a hybrid for me, and I'm stepping out, guys. I'm being vulnerable and showing you this is my honest goals. Because this is for real estate professionals at this time, when we get to the business assessment, I'm actually going to show you the numbers from when I was in Roanoke actually working as a CPE. But on the personal side, what is the minimum net income you need to meet your current financial obligations? This is the annual number that it takes to pay for all the things in your life. I make it a game to see how little money I can live on. I eat gourmet food every night. I have my dream motorcycles, mountain bikes, trucks. I play a game. And that's some of the things that I hope to teach in this community are the little games, like how I pay no more than 80 cents on the dollar for new stuff, almost always. It's just fun to negotiate. Just like negotiating to buy a house, you can do the same thing when buying a shirt or anything. So some more fun courses on that later. But be realistic here. Like, if you had to tighten your belt, what is the bare minimum your family needs to survive and maintain your current lifestyle? Not like, I mean, hell, we can literally live on a couple of dollars a day if you really have to tighten your belt. But like, to live the current lifestyle you're living, what's the minimum you need to maintain that? Next, what is the net income number? Now, notice I say net. Like, this isn't gross. Like, everyone likes to report GCI or revenue in a company. That's a bunch of horse shit. The only thing that matters is how much did you keep. Like, your fiscal irresponsibility is covered up by gross revenue or by gross commission income. Like, if you're terrible at managing your business or your money, or you make bad decisions, that easily hides that because you're not looking at EBITDA or net. So when we talk about these numbers, they're on an annualized basis and they're net figures in this case. So a net income number that excites you, one that's like, holy crap, wouldn't that be amazing? And then this is an interesting number. What is the net income number annually that you would have to have? You have no clue how you could ever do this, but you could say, yeah, I think that's going to be enough. I've asked a lot of extremely wealthy people this question, and it's really interesting to watch their body language when they answer. It'll tell you a lot about their relationship with money. For me, I think $5 million. My goal is to give away $20 million in value before my 50th birthday in 9 years. If I made $5 million a year, that would be relatively easy to do, even if I wasn't using tax strategies and wasn't investing the money, just the principal. So that to me is just a number that makes it really easy to overshoot my goal of putting that value out in the world. It doesn't have to be a crazy number. If that seems excessive to you, I understand. It has to me in the past. I used to think it was asinine that anyone could ever think they could make $1 million a year. But then I met people that make $100 million a year and they act like they make $50,000 a year. And I changed my perspective to a healthier perspective on wealth. Because, like I said about emotions, if your cup is full, then you can then you can pour yourself into others. And if your wallet is full, then you can contribute like you never have been able to before. And even on that mountaintop in Fernie, I said, I want to net 6 figures to live and give the way I want to. And for me, the first time I wrote $1,000 check to a charity, it was like, holy crap, that's a lot of money. Now it's just a kind gesture. It's like handing $1 out at church. Not to brag. I'm saying that I would forego spending that $1,000 on myself for some material thing. I would rather put that towards somebody who can turn that into multiples of $1,000 in value. And it just the feeling around that. So if you have a smaller mindset around money, you're put whatever that number is. There's no right or wrong answer. I would encourage you to think big and think exciting. Even if you aim and say $100 million a year, even if you only get 10% there, that's still pretty exciting at 10 million a year, right? Personal time. This is the one I feel like I've got a PhD in this one. So how many days off did you take last year? This one's kind of, I don't want to be deceptive. And in a professional capacity, like I spent at least 160 days not working. Now this last year, that's been a lot of farming and veterinary work and trying to drill a well on this property and, dealing with a lot of issues, helping my family through multiple deaths and multiple like immediate family and extended family. So I took a lot of time off for family this year. It wasn't fun time like I've had in my past, but I had created a lifestyle and a career around myself, allowed me to just drop what I was doing and not and hopefully maintain the value that you guys were getting, while I made them a priority. So I didn't count them all up. It was at least 160 days this year that I was not present in the business. And thanks so much to my team that made that possible, and to you guys for being here. Um, how many days off would you like to enjoy in the next year? For me, this is probably an asinine number to you, but I want to take more than 200 days off. Like, I think 165 days of work is enough. So I want to take 200 days to be present with the people I love, to do the things I love doing, to learn to do new things that I don't know how to do, but I would like to. So what's that? Like, get crazy with it. Like, it might just come true. So if you don't ASK, you don't GET. I can promise you that. So how many days off excite you? Write it down. Now, do you work evenings or weekends? This is something that I see so many real estate professionals. If you ever read the book Sales Dogs, I always think of the golden retriever metaphor. Like when a client calls at 8 p.m. And I've been this guy. This is why I'm being critical, because I've made these damn mistakes. Like, I would literally answer phone calls at midnight and start and work on deals. And eventually it ate up all of my time. Like, your business will eat the time you allow it to. As you scale, as you become more successful, people will demand more and more of your time until you set boundaries. So do you work evenings and weekends? I don't, until I want to. So I set a boundary back in 2014 where actually, no, that's not true. That was in early 2013. I changed everything. So I only went on appointments on Mondays and Fridays. Never did real estate functions on Saturdays or Sundays. My title companies knew, my buyers knew, my sellers knew, my broker knew. I always gave them someone else to call, but I was not available. And that's how I was able to to reclaim my time. I faltered and went back on it, and sometimes I was good at it, sometimes I wasn't. But now I have a choice to work on evenings or weekends, and I'm not gonna lie, a lot of mornings I will be up at 4 a.m., 4:30. The first thing I want to do is rush to this computer and try to find something to do for you guys. It's just fun for me. And after dinner, I'll come back in here, and sometimes I'll stand here till 11 or 12 at night and just do it because I want to, not because anybody's going to get pissed or I have deadlines or deliverables, because I've designed something that I enjoy, that I place an extremely high value on. I want to work nights and weekends sometimes, but when I don't want to, nobody gets hurt. So what about you? Do you work evenings and weekends? Next, who do you spend most of your time with? For me, here recently, it's been my family, my team, the fellow members of masterminds that I'm part of, like this one, and a lot of my neighbors. I've been gone from here for 15 years, so I cook for. I almost never eat alone. I cook. I like to cook gourmet food. I built a pretty amazing kitchen here, so I host people almost every night. I have dinner. So tonight we have at least two neighbors coming to join us, and it's just one of the ways that I contribute. And so I want to spend more time with those people. And then my godsons, I have spent more time on dutiful things than fun things in the last year. So I want to hang out with them more. I have godchildren. I should have put. I had 4 godsons, and then they had a sister. So I still haven't gotten used to that. The things and experiences. I think I have a PhD in this one too, the experiences, and not the things. I got rid of a lot of things, but what things do you want, or experiences do you want or need to improve your lifestyle, to get it to a level where you're like, I am living my best life? For me, I need to get back to traveling. I need to get back to doing philanthropy work on the ground. I need to get my camera back in my hand. I've got an amazing, Olympus setup that has barely been out of the bag for 2 years. I need to get back to being the adventurous Chad that I was prior to being the dutiful Chad. What about you? What things do you want, or what experiences do you want to really go, I'm living my best life? Next, what goal can you set to get these things? For me, I set the goal to go somewhere just to get out of this small community by February 15th and look at booking my next international charity trip. Oftentimes, those are 6 months to a year out. So I probably won't be going on it anytime soon, but looking at where I want to go. Do I want to go back to Nepal, back to Central America, South America, somewhere new? I don't know yet. I gotta sit with that, but that's a goal that I'm setting. So what's your goal to help you achieve whatever it is, those things or experiences that you're looking for? What's a goal that you can set, and how can you hold yourself accountable? So what experiences do you want to enrich your life? And for me, one of these things, something I've been wanting to do pre-COVID, I had this all planned out, and then COVID. But I want to try living abroad 1 month per quarter. We kind of did it this year. We spent a month in Scandinavia in 4 countries, but we didn't really work. We weren't living a normal life. We were just being kids. We hit 4 countries in a month and had a ball, but it wasn't a work-life balance thing. It was just play. So I want to try living abroad where I actually live a somewhat normal life, where I spend the time working, in this community when I want to work. And then I go out into, the streets of Portugal and buy seafood from a market. And instead of going out and walking through the wilderness, just try to change my environment, change the culture. Like, I get so much value from learning how other people think. And just like I talked about Dave, I mean, I've sat with older gentlemen and faraway lands in foreign countries and learned from those people. I want more exposure to that. So what experiences do you need to enrich your life? And it doesn't have to be exotic, guys. I hope none of this seems braggadocious. Like, it takes a lot to entertain my brain. It could be as simple as, you know what? I really think we want to go to Six Flags. I enjoy roller coasters, and I haven't done that for 20 years. It doesn't matter. Like, whatever you want. How often do you want to incorporate these experiences into your life? Like, if there's experiences that you want to do, is it a one-time thing? Is it one bucket list trip? Or is it like, you know what? We're going to rent a house in Palm Springs every 4th of July until the day I die. My family will celebrate their independence there, whatever it is. Like, it can be a recurring thing, but it's only you can answer that. How often do you want to do it? And I realized, like, when I was doing this worksheet, we probably need to expand, and each of these might need, 10 lines. Because if you're thinking big, so if you find you can't fit the experiences or the things that you want to purchase or acquire, then go to a separate sheet of paper, go to, a blank page. If you've printed this, flip it over and continue on the back. In future iterations of this, we may actually provide more room for writing so you can get crazy with it, be more thorough. Now, retirement. How old will you be when you stop actively working? I learned at 38 when I said, I'm going to retire early. I was, for years, I said at 30, at 25, 4, when I started selling real estate, I set a goal to be a millionaire by 30. I missed because 2008 happened and it set me back, but I quit at 29. By the time I hit 35, I was in like at the end of 34, I had reached accredited investor status. And that's why I wanted to be a millionaire. I wanted to be able to invest in private deals, because I looked at how damn hard it is to buy a house and flip it, or buy a house and rent it, and how damn easy it is to go buy a real estate syndication. So if I can buy a $250,000 house and then manage tenants 12 months a year, or I can buy a $250,000 chunk of a self-storage facility and make the same exact money for doing nothing, that was why I aggressively pursued that goal. But then I renewed it. I'm like, okay, retire by 40. I only need 2.25 million. And I I passed that at 38 because of the investments that I was making because of the first goal. So for me, not working was not good. I actually enjoy it. I love the challenge. I love the exposure to you guys. I love the stories that I hear from the consumers, the stories of your own success. So I'll probably do this till the day I drop. Because to me, it's not really work. This is pretty fun. So how much do you have to have invested or how much do you currently have invested for retirement? And this is just my year-end portfolio. It fluctuates, it changes. Sometimes you take it on the chin, and the vast majority, because I deploy cash, I don't like cash sitting around. 95% of that is deployed right now. I might have a 5% cash position. So it's mostly unrealized gains. It's not like I'm making it rain, in the local restaurants or anything. That's not for me anyways. It's for the world. So how much do you need for retirement? And what you're looking for here is, what's your shortfall? Like, how much do you have and how much do you think you're going to need? I'm extremely grateful and extremely fortunate to have this number tilted like this with the bigger number on top. I set the goal of what my retire by 40 goal was, 2.25 million invested at a minimum 10% yield, so I can live and give the way I want. So that gives me $225,000 a year. And you figure, like, my effective tax rate has been around 20%. So that gives me enough money to live with inflation, and it gives me enough money to continue to give away a significant amount each year. What's that number for you? How much do you have to have? There's a lot of tools that I can drop below. We'll be doing more on retirement in the communities, like in the workshops, and the Epic interview series. I'm going to give you exposure to people who have helped me really get to my retirement, past my retirement goals. And they're not stockbrokers or financial advisors. These are people that can actually help you get an atypical result. Atypical meaning retiring a hell of a lot before, having enough money to retire and having it be a choice. So I plan to expose you to those people in this community. But for now, how much do you have? Be honest. Like, if you had to stop working today, could you make it? And if not, how much do you need? And we're gonna use that gap for motivation, because that's going to tell us a lot about what we do in this space in our business. Next is personal growth. So what's the number one thing you want to do to improve your lifestyle in the next 12 months? For me, I want to get back to traveling at least 6 months a year, and I need to get back on my mountain bikes, motorcycles, and e-bikes. I know I talk a lot about motorcycles. They've played. It's not about the bike. It's not like I'm a Harley guy running around revving, going from bar to bar. To me, they're vehicles that have opened up the world. I've shot for magazines as a photojournalist. I've done philanthropic work. I've literally saved people's lives out on the road, and I've met some of the best damn friends a person could ever have. So it's a very emotional thing for me, even though it looks like I'm just a redneck covered in dust. There's a whole lot of purpose behind it, and that's what I want to get back to, is traveling with purpose. What about you? What's your number one self-improvement goal for the year? It can be anything. For a lot of people, it's better health, losing weight, cutting your spending, quit having Amazon, quit having an Amazon warehouse in your garage. What are your core desired feelings? So this one leads us into our next exercise, guys. I've told you that in 2014, I shut down 3 companies and hit the reset button. The final reason for doing that, buying that BMW motorcycle a few months earlier, had something to do with it. A couple months later, I went to a wedding, and we were coming home from a wedding in Ohio, and I listened to a podcast. Can't remember who the host was, but I remember the guest was Danielle Laporte, who's from British Columbia. And I heard her talking about feeling-based goal setting. And I'm like, well, that's different. I never really thought about that. At the time, I was running my businesses on the Vern Harnish system, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. So I was using the one-page strategic plan, and he had written Scaling Up. So I was very number driven. My metrics were numbers and logic. And I was like, this number of transactions at this and this and this. But I heard her talk about it, and she's a soft-spoken British Columbia woman that seems to be just at complete peace. And I'm like, that's interesting. So that night I got home, went to bed, didn't sleep. Finally gave up around 6 a.m. I got up when the light was up in my office, and I made a 26-minute video to myself just talking about feeling-based goal setting. And I sat down and I wrote, I don't know, I don't remember how many. I just started writing in a paper journal that I had. I just started writing the words. How do you want to feel in your life? Like, what are the words? And I probably came up with 75. And then I'm like, okay, some of these are less relevant than others. Some of them are synonymous, so you can combine some of these. Like this one pretty much means the same as that one, but that one has more feeling to it for me. And what I ended up with are these. I want to feel relaxed, adventurous, loved, significant, and respected. So that's the methodology I used. Now, since then, I do my damnedest to not do anything that doesn't make me feel these ways. There's some podcasts that I've done with other people as hosts where I talk about, like, especially the word relaxed. And for me, relaxed, if you're familiar with a flow state, like for me, being relaxed is in a flow state. And to get into a flow state, I normally have to drive long distances or do really dangerous thing on two-wheel toys or four-legged animals, like riding horses, riding dirt bikes. Fly fishing is one of those things. It's very technical. You have to pay attention to a lot of things, and you'd think these things that make you, you're trying to manage all these variables. For some reason, that's what gets me in flow. That's what opens up my creative thinking you have no time for any bullshit, or you could hurt yourself, or worse. And for me, that's relaxing, as crazy as that sounds. So it's not like the reason I tell you that is these words have personal definitions as well as they do dictionary definitions. Adventurous is, you've heard a lot of my story in this. Loved is, you understand, who doesn't want to feel loved? It's the highest currency we know. And I want to feel significant, like what I'm doing matters. And I want to feel respected, like I want to provide value at the highest damn level, that there's nobody that has more respect for giving in the space that I spend my time in, whether that's in a motorcycle training class or right here teaching this course. Those are what those words mean to me. What I found really interesting, so there's an example list of feelings here that you can use as your word cloud. Like I said, I wrote down maybe 75. You can feel free to do it that way. You can freestyle. You can also use this list of example feelings, and then that way you don't have to come up with all these words. I will tell you, it will have more meaning and it'll be more impactful if you start with a list of your own words and then force yourself to reduce that down to your top 5. Now, McKenna, being the amazing integrator she is, I'm giving her full credit where due. She took this idea and my story, and she took inspiration from her own path. Through her teens and early 20s, she read What Color Is Your Parachute? Now, What Color Is Your Parachute doesn't necessarily talk about core desired feelings, but what it does talk about is choosing a career path that's consistent with what you want, who you are. And this XY axis exercise, she took inspiration from the exercises in that book on making career choices. So this is, if you are more logic and less emotion, if you're more of the engineer type, the analytical, you're probably going to engage or connect better with this exercise. If you're more emotional, you operate more on emotions than on logic, then you're probably going to want to go with the word cloud methodology like I originally did. And you can come down and write your core desired feelings here. What I did was put my old core desired feelings in this field because I wanted to show you the difference. So my 5 were relaxed, adventurous, loved, significant, and respected. So I put these in here. Here's adventurous, relaxed, loved, respected, and significant. And then I chose other words using the word choices above. And I said, I want to feel accomplished. Who doesn't? Healthy. Why didn't I think of that? Everybody wants to be healthy. Loved, I already had. Intelligent. Yes, I highly value that. I spend a lot of time working on building a better brain. Benevolent. That's something that's become a huge part of my life. I want to put that in there. Purposeful. Sure, I want to be purposeful. So the idea here, this was a little hard for me to wrap my head around, and no criticism of McKenna's. It's clear here in the directions, but I was trying to rush through it. So what I would say is slow down. When you enter a word on this axis, this number 1 will actually populate this number 1. So when you write an adventurous here, you can see I will delete and then hit enter, and the adventurous is removed down here. Now I can try. Oh, so yeah, you'll populate the X and the Y axis. Then you're going to come through here and put a number. Like you're going to choose one of the two. So adventurous is here and it's number 1. Significant is here and it's number 10. So which of these means most to you? And this is what this is not putting the words against each other where like, aha, one has to win. It's like just an intuitive feeling. Don't get too logical about this. Which one feels best? Is it more important to you that you feel adventurous or more important that you feel significant? I literally made it to this first square and surprised myself. I'm like, whoa. 5 years ago, the biggest thing in my life was I want to be adventurous. But I've had a lot of things change me. I've the last year has been really tough. And for me, I had a very different reaction. My emotional reaction to these words was different. Significant was being able to step back from a life that was moving ahead, an exciting life, moving fast in one direction, and being able to step back from that and slow down and be present for my family. So significance had much, much higher emotional charge to me this time than it ever has. And that's why I chose that one. So you'll go through here. So next we look at adventurous versus purposeful, adventure over benevolence. Same thing. Like if I had to choose, like maybe I wouldn't, if I couldn't be benevolent, I wouldn't work. If I couldn't work, I would be adventurous. But I'm showing you some of my reasoning. It's not necessarily a competition of the words as much as it is, how do these words make me feel? Which of these resonate most authentically with me? And which ones are my words? So it took me a while to go through this. I tried not to overthink it. I tried to do it like the school test where it's like, don't overthink it, just go with your first answer. And I think that's the best methodology. The reason the gray boxes run through the center is you have obviously a 10 here and a 10 there. So it's going to be a 10. So these are supposed to be void. Now, what you'll end up with in step number 2, you'll go through and count how many times a number occurs. The way I found to do this, because our brains are conditioned, I went left to right on each line and I would carry the total until I got to the bottom. The top one was number 4, which was healthy, which if you notice wasn't even in my original 5 from 2014. So my number 1 ranked feeling is I want to feel healthy. There's a quote. I don't remember who to quote it to, maybe Confucius. I don't know. Joe Polish is who I last heard say it, and Genius Network. A healthy man has 1,000 dreams. A sick man has only one. And that's really, I mean, I'm only 41 years old, but having seen my friends drop of cancer in their late 30s and early 40s, people that were healthy just got blindsided. It really changed my perspective. Having friends commit suicide because they weren't mentally healthy, and having not known about it, like knowing that you damn well could have changed that outcome. So for me, that one carried a lot of emotional power this time. So healthy is my number 1, loved is my number 2, respected is number 3, significant and purposeful. And notice how different these are. Like there's some, that the adventure is not like that. My words changed. So I want to thank McKenna. She'll be editing the video when she gets this. It'll be a surprise for her. You guys can laugh along. But I want to thank McKenna for this exercise because I probably would have gone, I don't need to do that. I've already got my words. But I took it seriously, and because it was a different approach. And seriously enough, that it's a permanent part of this course. So whether or not if you find yourself struggling with it, you can go back to my original version of the word cloud. But I would encourage you to try both, because I surprised myself with this. It actually got different feelings out of me than I thought I was going to answer. Okay, now we can move on to our business. So we know we've got these 5 things. You now have words to pass things through. Like for me, I can't have a business that doesn't make me feel healthy, loved, respected, significant, or purposeful. Now I can flip that statement and I can say, I insist on having a business that allows me to be healthy, loved, respected, significant, and purposeful. Now, the really good thing is I finished this and then I looked at this business in its current state and I'm like, okay, I don't have to shut it down. It's good. So like this, like it's nice to have validation. And I hope that's what you discover from this exercise is that you're already living your best life. And this whole thing's been a waste of time, but it was fun, right? But chances are you've got some progress to make and you needed to have this, I hope. So in business, what is your primary career? Is it brokerage? Is it investment? Or is it both? Now, this is where I went back to my last year in production when I wasn't traveling all the time, when I was helping hundreds of clients a year. I was a broker, investor, and a lender. If you have to lump them into three categories, I was doing, buyer seller representation, limited agency. As an investor, I had flips, I had wholesales, I had lease options, rent to owns, owner finance, private money lending, all kinds of stuff. If I like, you may have already seen that, and if you've been following me for a while. So for me, it was everything, all the above. But for you, really be deliberate. What going forward, what will your primary career be? If you're in brokerage and you've always been afraid to buy a house, but you should, write down investor, make that first move, like set the intention and look at those feelings. Like, does being an investor make you feel the way that you said you wanted to feel? If not, maybe it's time to let go of it and just commit. Like, I'm the best damn broker ever. That's all I'm ever going to be. That's okay. I would love if you would be, vertically integrated and you could monetize every call, but hey, there's always referrals. So what's your number one weakness? Like the biggest thing that's holding you back? And for me, it's self-doubt. I don't think that standing behind this camera is something you want me to do sometimes. I have to deal with imposter syndrome. Even though I have the track record, I've got the portfolio, I've got the network, I've got the proof. I've got proof in the form of amazing students all over the country. Every once in a while, it's like, hey, you're so full of shit. Nobody believes this stuff. But I know that's not true. I see it every day. I've never deleted a comment online. I know that I have value, but I struggle like hell some days with self-doubt. They don't want to hear from you. They don't want to do this course. They don't want to design their career and their lifestyle. So I'll say this too, like show yourself some grace. I was really fascinated with, I'm in Genius Network and it's some of like 200 of them, some of the most successful people in the world. And they are not afraid to stand up and say the same thing. Like it's amazing how high performers, they all suffer with this. So it's not likely to go away, but let's shine a light on it. Like whatever that weakness is, it might come back and keep haunting us, but let's put it in the light. Don't let that hide in the dark and hold us back. Shine a light on that bastard and say, I see you over there. I'm gonna get rid of you. For me, it's self-doubt. That's the monster I fight. Not every day, not most days, just some days here and there. And so really get honest with yourself. What's your biggest weakness and what are you going to do about it? How's it holding you back and how can you move through it? What are the skills you're committed to learning and or improving on this year? For me, when I was in production, I had one thing I was always pursuing, finding a way to solve every problem for every person who would talk to me. If I could do that and I could directly or indirectly monetize it, I could scale quickly. And damn if I didn't. It was a great goal and it forced me to aggressively educate myself on just about every tactic and strategy in real estate that there is. That's why I've done so many deals, so many different ways, because I refuse to say no. After that meeting with Pam, I quit saying, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Like I don't know that I've ever said that ever again. Now I've said, I don't want to work with people like you, so you can help yourself because I'm not going to help you. When people are disrespectful and demanding me, when they thought they called a servant and a leader showed up, we clashed. So I've fired clients. I've denied doing business with people in this space. Very, very rare, only twice in my career. But I don't do well with pretentious assholes. So when people treat me like I don't deserve to be in the house that they're trying to sell, I'll be damned if I'm helping. But I'll get off that soapbox. For me, it was about finding a way to help every person and monetize that if they deserved it. And how will you hold yourself accountable for these results? For me, if I have to say I can't help you, I will refer you to my top competitor and I'll personally call him and say, hey, man, I don't have the skill set to close this lead. Can you please do my job for me? And I don't expect a referral fee. Put some fucking teeth in it. Like if you want to be held accountable to break through, to get to a whole new level of service, a whole new level of professionalism, a whole new level of performance, put some teeth in your accountability move. I have written $10,000 checks to my top competitor and mailed them to a coach and said, all right, if I don't hit my KPIs, you mail the damn thing. There was a letter in there of me falling on my sword, giving my top competitor $10,000 for his marketing budget to compete with me. Put teeth in your accountability move. You'll get shit done. You'll move mountains. What's your professional footprint? By this, I mean your geographic area. How far are you willing to go? So do you have a local or a virtual team or staff? For me, it's hybrid. It always was. I've been running virtual companies since 2011. I built everything around that because of those three things on the mountaintop, right? So I do a hybrid office in real estate. I had a hybrid office. My assistants are local. I don't use VAs. I really just, it's not that I don't believe in it. They don't meet my standards. Nothing about them culturally or professionally. It's for me, someone who understands US culture and someone who I can go see in a few hours or if I need to. That's more important than paying $4 an hour and having to replace them every 3 months. For me, I would rather provide an amazing job for an amazing, person who lives in the same country I do business in. It's just everything's easier. So that could be different for you, but for me, I run a hybrid office where it's sometimes we meet in person. Most of the time, we never see each other. We just work virtually and live on Zoom like we did pre-COVID. Back then, my market was Roanoke, the MSA. If you're not familiar with the metropolitan statistical area, like the Roanoke MSA was, it was because it's a Commonwealth, there were 5 counties in there. It really sounds big if you lay it out that way, but if it's just Roanoke MSA, it's kind of like, oh, that little valley with 300,000 people. Gotcha. That was pretty much my footprint. And then do you work a single market or multiple? I would consider that MSA a single market, even though there were, multiple cities, counties, zip codes, all that. So you got to determine where you're willing to go. Maricopa, LA, like those things are massive. And for someone who tries to buy Cook County, Illinois, if you're going to bite off a probate list in Cook County, you're going to have, I think it's over 900 leads a month. And that thing, you better be ready to work or have some help because that's a big undertaking. Where we're giving you for the first time ever, we're giving you the opportunity to break your data down into the city level or the zip code level for reasons. That's one of the reasons. Work schedule. Do you have a set schedule? For me, it was yes when I was in production. I live and die by my calendar. That's the only way my staff I can not have to micromanage if everybody can see what I'm doing. So for me, it was Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Everything else was off limits unless I chose to work, which wasn't very often because I had to be present with other people in my personal life because I worked so hard during the week. For you, do you have a set schedule or do you just kind of wake up each morning and be like, okay, let's see what real estate brings today? For me, what that ended up being was Monday and Friday were for appointments, looking at houses, buying them or listing them. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday were administrative days. That's when we tracked our deals in escrow. We talked to the title companies, the lenders, the inspectors. We dealt with the processes of moving that through. There were blocks of prospecting time for me. So I would meet with my admin, we'd get her lined out. She would go handle transaction management. And then I would jump on the phone. So from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The reason was a study that MIT did back around that time. I was in the NAEA mastermind with Jay and Mike. And the MIT had did a study of, I think, 88,000 Zillow leads. And those were the times where they got the highest close rates and conversion rates. So that became a permanent block in my calendar. And I did not leave my office on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I didn't care if a client's hair was on fire. It could wait. Now I always did what was required, but I didn't let them control me. If my cell phone was ringing in between prospecting calls, I sent it to voicemail. So I had discipline, but I let my calendar be my CEO. So I tried to do Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Sometimes I deviated, but usually only because I wanted to. How many hours do you work? How many hours per week do you work? For me, I tried to keep it below 40. When I was in production, that was pretty challenging because I would be up at 5:30 in the morning to go to the gym, and then I would be my real estate brain would immediately kick in, and I was like I was working by, hell, I was working in the gym. So a lot of times I would work from 6 or 6:30 all the way through, and I would break the rule on the other end and work through till 7, 8, 9 sometimes. But not perfect, but set an intent, like set a goal of what are your, like, if you have a choice, what are your work hours? Lastly, on this page, do you let customers and clients set the hours, or do you do it? And do you have them conditioned to respect your time? This one's pretty specific, but for me, it's a lesson I want to share. What I just told you, like, I don't mind working hard. I don't mind working long hours. I actually have done some of my best work in 16, 18-hour days of just pure focused, deep work. But I don't let clients and customers dictate the hours I work, because then I never have space. The second I do that, then my time gets spread around and deprioritized. So I let my calendar set my hours. People have to come to me through that calendar. So that way, everything, like, I have that time to do the work, the deep work, or to be present with my family or whatever that is. So my calendar is my CEO, and my entire team can see everything on my calendar and put things on my calendar, as can the public can't see everything, but they can see all my availability. So there's one way to get through, and that's to come through the calendar. And that allowed me to take control of my time and what I do with that time. And I would highly, highly recommend, as scary as it was, I took my phone number off of everything. I drove everything to a Calendly link. And now people respect my time more than ever. And we get right to the point and have amazing conversations. And I get to jump right in to help solve the problem for whatever reason someone reached out for me. We just get to the point, get it done, and then have a fun conversation. I'm on to the next one. So I would encourage you, if you're letting customers and clients lead you all over the place, take control of your time, make your calendar your CEO, and you'll have more time to do the things you want. Next, we get to income. So this is based on my Roanoke numbers. We were doing, $200,000 a year. So what was your income last year in your real estate business or businesses, if you want to lump this together? If you've already have a brokerage company, an investment company, a management company, a lending company, lump them all together. Let's do it as one big plan if that fits your vision. Now, what was the net on that? The first one is your gross for the year. Now, what was your net income? So for me, the price point was so low in Roanoke, we'd do about 200, net out 130 if we're lucky. The EBITDA for the next 12 months, I think if I went back with my current skill set, and I were to step back into production tomorrow, I believe I could fairly easily knock through 250 in revenue. Median house price in Roanoke at this time, like, these are the numbers. Things have gone up so much. Since I reported like valid income numbers, I put into the yesterday's median price, not today's. The median has gone from around 140 when I moved to Roanoke to a 260. I think that's probably not gonna be sustainable, but who knows? We never printed this many $1 trillion. But for me, 250 grand is what I think would be achievable in a small market like that at that median house price of 118. At the time, I would keep around 150,000 in personal cash, and then around $80,000 in the business, and everything else got invested off or didn't exist yet. So go through and be real honest with yourself. Like, if you don't know your numbers, that's the main reason this is here, is most people don't know what the hell they make. And I've always been amazed. When I first started coaching, I couldn't believe. I mean, I would, like, people were making $500,000 and $600,000 a year and didn't even know it. I'm like, how many deals did you do last year? Hey, I don't know. It probably around 30. I don't really know. And the good thing is they're comfortable. They didn't need to know. The bad thing is they're comfortable and they do need to know, because if they have the ability to knock out $600,000 a year in their probate business, and they didn't even know that, what the hell are they capable of if they're clear and they're like, they've got a vision that just sets them on fire? Hell, they're probably doing 1.2 if we can just get them to focus, right? So there might be a revelation in your own numbers waiting for you. Listing goal, I usually got around 100 leads and converted 6%. So I put that at 72. I would look at that and say, how many do I think I can do? Buyer agency. So for me, as I talked to you about earlier, I chose to just work with investor buyers. Otherwise, they got referred off to somebody on my team or somebody in my brokerage, or in rare instances when there were people that I didn't want any of my people working with, I would refer them to competitors. Those buyers, you've had that buyer and you've had that competitor where you're like, hey man, got a referral for you. You got to have fun in real estate. So the buyer agency, 36, acquisition goal, 1 a month is about all I ever wanted to bite off, because with all these brokerage deals, I could, I learned not to flip houses, and I learned that I wasn't a landlord. So doing a wholesale here and a wholesale there was fun, but it wasn't the predominant. It just wasn't the business I liked. The majority of clients chose what I was going to do for them. This is kind of how the numbers shook out on an annualized basis. Are you a solopreneur or do you have a team? For me, I had a small team with 3 buyers agents and an admin. On the investment side, I was a solopreneur. I didn't find the need for a staff on the investment side of the business. It was relatively straightforward. Where in brokerage, it's busy. Do you have a vendor team to allow you to offer non-real estate services? This is, if you've been through Probate Mastery, you damn well better say yes to this. If you've ever been in our Facebook group or any of our calls, like, you better say yes. For me, this is critical. Like, having a team of vendors that I can trust around me that provide a consistent level of service is just critical. Otherwise, you will be working 100 hours a week trying to execute on the things that I teach. The idea is to work less, earn more, and do good. The working less part is building a really damn good team around you so you can delegate those tasks. Okay, so now we're going to go through another exercise. This is something that a friend of mine challenged me when I was at kind of a low point, not real sure what I wanted from life. It was during the journey where I discovered feeling-based goal setting and really took control of trying to deliberately design and live a life. A friend of mine, Shashin, challenged me. He said, you know what? I'm gonna give you a good shortcut here. He said, I want you to sit down and write a letter to yourself 5 years from now. And I was amazed at how quickly this got through the bullshit, the self-doubt, the excuses, the procrastination, like all of the justifications that I was telling myself, the reasons I couldn't make a decision. And I started to envision, what type of man am I in 5 years? And then I started to think out from a 10-year standpoint, like, who am I in 10 years? Who do I hang out with? What are my habits? How much money do I make? What does that feel like? Where do I live? What do I drive? And I started to do this, and it's amazing what you will write a letter like I'm trying to keep out of act like I'm a neuroscientist, but Like, I really enjoy Dr. Andrew Huberman and Stephen Kotler, and a lot of these guys are uncovering like how our brain works that kind of reveals why it's so damn hard to do some of these things like planning forward. And this is a really, really interesting short circuiting of a lot of the ego, that if I can put you out 5 years and you set an audacious goal, you have no damn clue how you could ever achieve that. But if you can trust enough that you can just say, okay, let's just assume that it happened. Now I have to write my way back and try to figure out deductively how the hell I pulled that off. And instead of your ego going, you can't do that, you're too stupid. You can't do that, you don't have the money. You can't do that, you decided to have kids, it's not going to work. You can't do that, you don't have a passport. Like, stop that bullshit, shut that ego up and sideline him by skipping over him to the end result. Go to the outcome and then write your way back. And what I find, at least in myself and in the people that I've coached, the ego is kind of like a turnstile. You can slip through it in one direction and it becomes a blockade in the other direction. So imagine when you walk through a subway turnstile and you try to get back through, coming out of the subway up the steps is almost like you're fighting your ego to try to get that. Where if you're trying to go to the subway to be transported, like to the path that it's going on, you go through the turnstile. Maybe a poor metaphor, but that's how it seems to work for me. Is if you leap over your ego right now and then work your way back, you can sneak right past that little bastard and get to where you are today. And that for me has been a really quick way to get out of my limited beliefs and thinking and get into a creation mindset. Like, I can freaking do it. I know I can do that because I just teleported myself there and then I found my way home. Right here's home. That's where I'm going. In less than 5 years, I'll be there. So it's a little trick that I learned by this exercise. It wasn't explained to me that way, but that's what I took away from it. And that's how I've coached people for several years now. And I've seen it be extremely effective to the point where I believe it has probably eliminated suicides. So this is my letter. You can read this if you want. Go ahead and pause the video. What I want to say is, this is not me. This is me back into my current business, not in my real estate production mindset. And this is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be you going out 5 years and coming back through that turnstile of the ego so it can't block you, and finding you're right back to where you are now. Now, there is a 99.9% chance it's not going to play out the way that you envision it right now, but it's free to renew this. You can do this every day if you need to. It's unlikely. You probably do it maybe once a year, once every 3 years, maybe. But get your mind to believe that you can get to the outcome you said you were going to get to. If that was being a real estate broker making $1 million a year, get out there 5 years, envision it, feel it, like believe it, and then plan your way back. How did that possibly happen to you? Who helped you? Who did you hang out with? How did you spend your time? Where did you invest your money? Like, how the hell did you get to $1 million a year in brokerage revenue? Did you do it by joining a different brokerage and getting people in your downline and passive income? So you're all going to have a different vision. You're all going to have a different path back to where you are today. So pause this now, jump in, and try to have fun with it. Don't overthink it. Okay, now a vision is a great thing to have, but without action, it will almost always fall through the cracks. It'll be forgotten. So hopefully this has all been helpful. It's meant to kind of build on itself and get you to understand why I'm asking you to do things in a certain order. But as much as I would love to give you your personalized plan, only you really have that. Like, you're the only one that knows the answers to these things. I don't know what your deepest fears and secrets are and how they might be holding you back, or what traumas have happened to you that give you apprehension in certain areas. You know that. You're in your head. So get in there and figure out how to live with it and get the result that you want. Plan your way back to today and take action. So like what I have, what I can give you is a community of peers that are well above average. I can give you live weekly interaction with me and member mentors. I can give you monthly education, access to our team, access to your peers in a private Facebook environment, lots of other fun things that we're going to have in this community. I can give you the leads. I can give you the marketing pieces. What I can't do is give you the mindset that it takes to get where you want to go. And only you can do this. So I want to leave you with something here before you go on. Success is simply getting what you want. Fulfillment is living what you're made for. You'll find out if there's one gift I could give everyone, it would be just like, here's $1 million cash. I don't give a damn what you do with it. The only point of me giving you this money is to show you how little value it has. It doesn't matter. When you have an abundance of it, it loses value. And I just wish everybody had the opportunity to know that when they were 18 years old. The world would be a different place if that were the case. People would act on purpose. People would act, they would not be chasing dollars and fancy cars. They would realize what hedonistic adaptation is, and they would live on purpose, and they would have careers that meant something to them. That's what I hope we're achieving for you here today. So only you know you know your outcome. Only you know the process that will get you there, and I can provide the community and the tools and the support to help you. But you've got to take action. Now, there's a fun way to take action. I have a tactic I call my momentum move, and I've got so many stories about how that I've done this, but one that ties back into, I've told you guys a lot about, my adventurous lifestyle and traveling the world to do charity work and riding motorcycles and training people. Back in 2015, I had kind of set this vision that I wanted to be a photojournalist, and I wanted to actually take adventure motorcycles deep into Africa and Asia and South America and Central America to reach these communities that have extremely high death rates because of dirty water or no water, lack of water. And when I looked at the statistics, I started to support Charity Water and water.org. And then I found other charities that so I was like, I want to do that. Like, I think that that's my calling. Like, instead of just donating money, swiping a credit card, I want to go to the wellhead, meet the people, document the story, and build the damn thing. And then I want to go back in a year, in 3 years, and actually show the impact, like show that this makes a difference. And I scared the shit out of these charities. They didn't know what to do with me. So I literally went to Manhattan, went into Charity Water's office and sat down. I'm like, hey, how you guys doing? And I'm like, my motorcycle, my money, my time, my risk, give me the wellhead locations. Let me know what kind of videos and interviews you want. And they were like, we don't do that. And I'm like, I didn't ask if you do it. I told you got to volunteer. And they didn't know what to do with me. And I'll say they missed a hell of an opportunity to really have cool social media content, at least. But I was willing to risk my life and spend months in the African backcountry on my bike to go take pictures and interview people and just do whatever they wanted me to do. I was like, here I am, use me. I gave you thousands of dollars. Now I'm giving you my most valuable resource, time. Scared the shit out of them. So they didn't know what to do. I'm like, okay. Anyways, I didn't know how to enter this. I didn't know how to achieve this. It was a crazy vision, like going around the world, creating clean water systems to help save kids' lives. How do you do that? Like, where do you start? So for me, I started with a momentum move. I'm like, well, if I'm going to have an expensive camera and take thousands of pictures, then I probably better have a waterproof, dustproof, shockproof camera. And I'm going to need to take a laptop to get things off of the camera. And if I need to communicate, so I'll need a waterproof, shockproof, crushproof laptop case. So Pelican, a company that makes cases and tackle boxes, lots of plastic things for the military and government. I bought a Pelican case, which is a waterproof, crushproof laptop case for my MacBook. And then I switched out my Canon T2, that cheap camera I took to Canada. And I bought like top of the line Olympus gear that National Geographic adventure photographers would use in the backcountry for months and months. And then I waited. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to help, but I'm going to set the intent. I will travel the world on a motorcycle as a photojournalist and physically contribute to the water solution. I don't even remember, a few weeks went by and I got invited to teach an advanced motorcycle training class at a rally that was hosted by ADV Moto magazine. And Carl, the senior editor and the founder of that magazine, was like, "Hey man," he's like, "what do you even do?" He's like, "You're always camping and riding." Like, I'm like, "Oh, I got businesses." I started to tell him about my 3 rules. I'm like, I deliberately designed my business around my lifestyle so I can do what I want. And he's like, "Can you go to South America and Central America?" I'm like, "Yes, I can." So I got paid trips into Central and South America to do photojournalism for a magazine in this case. And that was the first step, the momentum move. I was like, yeah, I'll be there next week. Didn't have to think twice. I had the gear. I was ready to roll because I made my momentum move and it brought me closer to that. Well, that wasn't the outcome. The pictures you see on the screen here, this is me in the local newspaper here in West Virginia when they found out that one of the locals, crazy asses, flew literally 3/4 of the way around the world. And I went to Nepal, rode a Royal Enfield motorcycle. You can see I'm riding across the longest cable bridge you weren't allowed to ride across it, but it was a hell of a valley. So I took a shortcut and sent a photographer ahead. But this is me on a life-changing trip. In the spring of 2018, 18 or 19. I have trouble. I think it was 18. Anyways, I went to Nepal and I spent a month riding almost from Pakistan to Myanmar. We went to villages where they've never seen anyone outside of their own region. Like, they've never seen a freaking paved road. They don't even have a concept of money. We had special government clearance and we were allowed to go into these villages because we were bringing solutions that NGOs, they just couldn't. The conditions were so harsh and the riding was so tough that people can't afford. There aren't very many horses, and motorcycles are how people get around. But the roads were so rough that it took a pretty damn good skilled rider to get back in there. So we took these MSR water systems back in, installed them at the village level, and helped hopefully save tens of thousands of lives. But that was a momentum move that led to something that seemed impossible to me when I envisioned it. And within a 2-year period, I guess it was from 15 to 17. Anyway, in a 2-year period, I ended up going on multiple motorcycle trips around the world, paid for by others, with my camera and writing and doing photography. And like this picture on the right, I obviously didn't take it. Another photographer that was with me did. But like, just connecting with people in true agrarian societies that I would have never had the opportunity to, had I not sat down that day and said, what is living deliberately for you? What adventure are you looking for? What contribution are you trying to make? So that's how I ended up there. And that's my momentum move. So whatever you've envisioned for yourself, whatever you've written in that 5-year letter, what will you do right now? What is the first step that will create momentum to take you to that goal? And I'm going to give you a challenge. So not only what is your momentum move, if you're willing to, I've been willing to be vulnerable enough to show you my real numbers and my real answers here. And I would encourage you to go post your workbook. You can save this PDF in Dropbox or Google and save a link to it. You can, upload it as a file. But I challenge you, if you really want to achieve this, if you want an accountability move with teeth and you want a momentum move, let us help you get there. That's what a mastermind is for. So post this in a state professional's mastermind. We don't want you publishing this for the world. Like, I want you to only be held accountable by peers that deserve to be critical of you. There's a certain level of filtering that happens, like to be a member. So don't throw it out there in open groups where people can take your best ideas and throw them back at you and tell you you're stupid. You want people who are thinking like you to be able to hold you accountable. If you don't want to do that, something else is just pick up your phone, make a video and say, you know what, guys, this is my accountability video. I'm a part of Estate Professionals Mastermind. Here's the audacious goal that I set out to achieve, the letter that I wrote myself, who I am in 5 years, and here's how I'm going to get there. And here's what I need from you to help me. And then post the video. This is super powerful. Peer accountability is huge. If you guys have been part of our Estate Professional Mastermind community or the Probate Mastery alumni, you've seen people do things like this, put themselves out there and really say, hey guys, I really suck at this. Who can help? Or what am I doing wrong? Or, hey, I'm going to achieve this. I need someone to hold me accountable. I want to role play at 7 a.m. every Wednesday morning. And there's been so many connections like that have happened over the last few years. And I'm super proud of that. So what is your momentum move? How can we hold you accountable? How can we help you get that result? And that's it, guys. That's the end of the workbook. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for sticking through this. Hope that you had an open mind and this wasn't boring or daunting or tedious. I hope you had got as much from taking this as I meant for you to get when designing it. I will say that I'm extremely grateful that you're here. I couldn't live this lifestyle that I've been telling you that I enjoy so much without helping people like you. So thank you for trusting me to lead you through this exercise, and I'll see you.